everyone, and welcome to the show that asks you to pull out your books, pull up a chair, and join us at the table. As always, my man, Mr. Michael Powell, please tell them a little bit about yourself, where they can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Kapow, and you can find me on most social medias as Mr. Kapow. That's Mrkapao. And how about you, PJ?
Thank you very much. My name is PJ McGaw. As you all know, you can find me everywhere at pj.mcgaw. And when I'm not here Tuesdays, I'm here Wednesdays, doing Edge of Legends, Halloween edition, until the end of the month. So that being said and done, quick little shout out. We were originally going to be having on the show an amazing D&D streamer and friend of the show, World of Wildevere. But our thoughts go out to them as they are having some family issues currently, some family health issues. I think everything's going to be okay, but we may have them on next week instead. So, without further ado, World of Wildevere, I hope everything's going well. I hope your family's doing well. We are going to continue our series on Halloween-themed content from Paizo and Pathfinder. And we're going to look at this bad boy and do The Witch. That's right.
Yep, we were actually originally planning to do this on Halloween week, but we're kicking it up today.
Yeah, sometimes life throws you a curveball and just go with the flow.
Yeah. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Or in this case, spooky lemonade.
Which is like lemonade, but with...
witches.
What? Witches, yes. It's lemonade from a cauldron.
Yeah, it's witchade.
Witchade. Oh man. So the witch is gonna be an interesting class. If you guys watch the Nightmare of Daltonshire episodes, if you haven't seen it on the stream, you can go to our YouTube page. Just YouTube search Edge of Legend. I believe we have episode 2 up. In episode 2, Sydney, as you all know, Sydney of Hightower, she plays Ilona. She is playing a witch named Omren. And this is a lot of what she's doing. So without further ado, let us start with the witch. You command powerful magic not through study or devotion to any ideal, but as a vessel or agent for a mysterious, otherworldly patron that even you don't entirely understand. This entity might be a covert divinity, a powerful fae, a manifestation of natural energies and ancient spirits, or any other mighty supernatural being. But its nature is likely as much a mystery to you as it is to anyone else. Through a special familiar, your patron grants you versatile spells and powerful hexes to use as you see fit, though you're never certain if these gifts will end up serving your patron's larger plan. So moving right along, before we get started, topic discussion. Do we think the witch is like a fun variant of the warlock? Do we think it is a revamp of the original witch? For those of you it's one of those days. For those of you that may or may not know, the witch was an original class in Pathfinder First Edition, also the Advanced Player's Guide, along with the Inquisitor, cough cough, and
You're really on that, man. You're really on that Inquisitor train.
You know, it's not that I care, it's that I keep screwing up. And I feel like if I just have the Inquisitor, I'll stop calling the Investigator the Inquisitor. I'm hoping. I don't think that will happen.
I words.
And they both end in an So like my brain is like, we got the end of the word, we got the beginning of the word, now we're good. We'll figure it out. Yeah. So witch. We're going to get through it. We'll discuss and chat. If you have ideas, if you have says, please let us know. But, is it a warlock? Is it a more spiffy, powerful, or less powerful version of the Pathfinder First Edition witch class? I remember looking at it back when they were playtesting the Advanced Player's Guide, so I'm really curious to see what stuck from that beta test.
There's been, like, pretty much, I want to say every playtest class, there's been quite a bit of changes. Some of them I actually disagree on. I wish they kind of kept it to what the playtest was, I want to say.
Yeah, I remember reading in the thing about the natural weapons that the witch got, and I thought that was a really cool. Um, I always love natural weapons. I love being armed even when you're unarmed, like a monk would be.
Hmm.
But what I liked was kind of the flavor and the just utter weirdness of it in the playtest. So I'm really curious to see where it goes from here.
All right. So anyway, let's go into the witch class and let's talk about PJ. As you took the intro, why don't you continue on with like key abilities and such and such?
Sure thing. I will do the first
The
page
such and such.
breakdown.
The such and such.
The first page, such and such, on the witch and witch. So out the gate, your key ability is your intelligence. This is a caster class, and they're not charisma based. Hit points are 6 plus Constitution modifier, a bit squishy.
Hmm.
Your proficiencies, you are trained in proficiency, which I have yet to find a class that isn't, and thank you because everyone needs it. Saving throws, you are trained in fortitude and reflex, and you are an expert in will saves, which is why it's hard for me to kill witches in my Halloween show. Skills, you're trained in one skill determined by your patron, so that's going to be part of your build. And you're trained in a number of skills equal to 3 plus your intelligence modifier. This is interesting because a lot of casters still usually have like 1 or 2 core crux skill proficiencies before you factor in like school and intelligence modifier. And this one really has a short skill list by
Yeah.
proxy. You are trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks, much like many casters. You are untrained in all armor, but you are trained in unarmored defense, and your spell attack rolls and spell DCs are all trained at first level. So at the gate, kind of weird their skills are a little lighter
Yeah.
than the wizard and
Yeah.
the sorcerer.
Yeah. If anything, they kind of have what would a martial class list would be.
Yeah, but it's strange because I don't have anything to back up being a martial class
Yeah.
from that list, from the first
Yeah.
page breakdown. But let's see. Let's go into the other stuff like, well, the very first thing, patron. Do you want to cover patron or should I?
Okay. Give me a second.
Sure, sure, sure.
Actually, why don't you start off with the first patron, and we'll just take turns like we do usual because we're friends and we know sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. Yeah, today's also kind of a weird low vibe day. Apologies.
Hmm.
I did a stream across the world today at 6 a.m. and had to wake up at 4 a.m. to get ready for it. And Michael Powell was just killing it on a 5-hour recording session yesterday. So we're giving you our best.
Yeah.
We will not let you down, I swear. But we will be tired. Patron, you weren't born with the power to cast spells, nor have you spent years in devotion to tomes, deities, or mystical secrets. Your power comes through a potent being that has chosen you as their vessel to carry forth some agenda in this world. This entity is typically mysterious and distant, revealing little of their identity and motivations, and they grant you spells of other magical powers through a familiar, which serves as a conduit for their power. A patron might be a deity or demigod, a coven, a powerful hag, a fey lord, an archdevil, or a similarly powerful entity, or perhaps multiple such figures working in tandem. I like that idea. As you gain more of your patron's power, you might learn about who or what they are. Certain combinations of themes and lessons suggest particular patrons or agendas, but patrons empower witches for their own secretive reasons, which they rarely reveal in full. At first level, choose your patron's theme, which determines your spellcasting tradition, a skill, a special cantrip you gain, and a spell added to your familiar. The patron themes presented in this book are found on page 99, which we'll get to later. But yeah, out the gate, it does sound a little warlocky. However, the warlock doesn't have a living magic book. They don't have a familiar that houses their magic. They just have it, which is a bit more efficient, but I do love the flavor that you are not so rigidly stuck into with the warlock, where the warlock is saying it has to be a fiend, it has to be whatever unearthed arcana we fished out of the river today. No, it's like it can be some cool story that you want to tell or live through.
Yeah, I like
Which I like.
how your witch doesn't exactly know where they get their powers from. And as you said, it could be an entire story arc kind of dedicated to finding out where they got their dark power from. And also, uh, it kind of gives DMs like us kind of something to create a unique story hook, you know. And granted, that's not to say you can't right off the bat know who exactly your patron is. If you want, work with your DM, you can know who exactly your patron is right off the bat.
Yeah. Maynard is asking for heavy comparisons to the Warlock throughout the whole analysis. Okay. Mentioning, is a Warlock a regular spellcaster? I believe a Warlock is a prepared spellcaster. But of course, I actually prefer this with Warlocks, but their shtick is that they get so little spells a day, but they get them back super fast.
Mm-hmm.
So they are really consistent magic damage dealers. I think the most spells they get a day at like 20th level is like 4. They get like 3 or 4 once a day spells that are very powerful. They get a bunch of spells that are more powerful than average. And of course, they get the utterly broken Eldritch Blast. But that's in a different system. We'll learn what these have by comparison. Sounds like they get an additional cantrip. The witch, I should say, gets an additional cantrip, an additional skill, and an additional spell, which is stored in the meat of the familiar. Sorry, I just love the idea that a book, like a snake, is a book.
Well, also another thing is that special cantrip is known as a hex cantrip, which we'll get to in a bit.
Mr. Michael Powell, do you want to read about the familiar?
Okay. I have a bit of feelings about this. Especially considering, well, you'll know if you rewatch episode 2 of Nightmare at Daltonshire. Yeah. Your patron has sent you a familiar, a mystical creature that teaches you and facilitates your spells. The familiar follows the rules here, which, yeah. Anyway, though as its direct conduit between you and your patron, it's more powerful than other familiars. Your familiar gains an extra familiar ability, gains another ability at level 6, 12th, and 18th. Your familiar is the source and respiratory of your spells that your patron has bestowed upon you. You must communicate with your familiar to prepare your spells each day using your witch spellcasting. Your familiar starts off knowing 10 cantrips, 5 first-level spells, and 1 additional spell determined by your patron's theme. You choose these spells from the common spells of the tradition determined by your patron, or from other spells of that tradition you gain access to. Each time you gain a level, your patron teaches your familiar 2 new spells of any level you can cast, chosen from common spells of your tradition, or others you gain access to. Feats can also grant your familiar additional spells. Your familiar can learn new spells independently of your patron. It can learn any spell on your tradition spell list by physically consuming a scroll of that spell in a process that takes 1 hour. You can use a learn a spell exploration activity to prepare a special written version of a spell which your familiar can consume as if it were a scroll. And your familiar can also use learn a spell activity to teach your familiar a spell from another witch's familiar. Both familiars must be present for the entirety of the activity. The spell must be on your spell casting tradition spell list, and you must pay the usual cost for that activity, typically in the form of offering to the other familiar's patron. You can't prepare spells from another witch's familiar. If your familiar dies, your patron replaces it during your next daily preparations. The new familiar might be a duplicate or reincarnation of your former familiar, or a new entity altogether, but it knows the same spells your former familiar knew regardless. Your familiar's death doesn't affect any spells you have already prepared.
This is well, it's exciting because it's created a whole new system for the experience of playing with magic. You know, like when you're a wizard or a magus or a sorcerer, there's either a kind of boring system of I gotta write it in my book, or I just unlock it within me, or the magus, I'm going to literally eat magic from everywhere.
Yeah.
This is cool because like you basically get to play Pokemon camping, and then your Pokemon, your living magic book from yipping and dancing with another magic book comes back and it's like, hey, guess what, Dad? I now, or Mom, or whatever, which I have this new spell now.
Mm-hmm.
Also insane, and I feel this needs to be said, this class starts with 10 cantrips. And I kind of cheated. I look a little bit forward in the spell chart. They can cast 5 cantrips a day. They can prepare 5 cantrips a day, all day, level 1 to 20. So they have the most cantrip potential out the gate. That's amazing. I also love cantrips, and I love what they do with cantrips in this edition. So this is just good.
Yeah.
It's not exciting, but it's good.
And also, like you said before, your familiar is essentially a living spell book. And I also love the flavor where your familiar could basically eat a scroll to learn a new spell.
It's so cute. There's so much fun role play here, and it's all upon the player to create these fun choices. Like you can take a spell scroll, rip it up into breadcrumbs, and feed. Let's say your familiar is a crow. You can feed it breadcrumbs of a scroll. You can wrap it in a steak and throw it to your tiger. You can I don't know. Let's say your familiar is a dog. You can make them play go fetch and then have them chew it like a chew toy.
Yeah.
There's so much fun that you can do here.
Mm-hmm. And also, I don't know. I'm just envisioning. One second. I'm just envisioning, like I said, eating a whole scroll, kind of wrapped up like a burrito. That's how I see it.
I can see
Yeah.
now. Burrito Witch, go!
Yeah. But
And they,
another thing that's really
yeah.
cool is it could also learn new spells when it meets another familiar. So either it's like two cats just kind of talking, like meowing at each other, or it could be like dogs where it's sniffing each other's butt.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. It does say you can't prepare spells from another witch's familiar. So I suppose what that is implying is that if you learn the spell, I guess you can cast it spontaneously,
Mm-hmm.
but you cannot put it in your prepared spell list. So there might be some flexibility there, and we'll see as it goes. But right now, at the gate, at level 1, this thing has 10 cantrips and 5 first-level spells known.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I also want to make this point out, at least from what I'm understanding and from the sources that I've read from and everything. If your familiar dies, you're not gonna really be able to cast any more spells because that's where you get all your spells from until the next
True.
day.
It does say, yeah. Let's see. They house the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
of your spell. Well, let's get the witch spell casting a look and see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Using your familiar as a conduit, your patron provides you the power to cast spells. You can cast spells using cast a spell activity, of course, and you can supply material, somatic, and verbal components when casting spells. At first level, you can prepare up to 2 first-level spells and 5 cantrips each morning from the spells your familiar knows. Prepared spells remain available to you until you cast them or until you prepare your spells again. The number of spells you can prepare is called your spell slots. Pretty standard. As you increase in a level as a witch, your number of spell slots and the highest level spells known goes up as well. Some of your spells require a spell attack, blah, blah, blah. That's going to be your DC. So it looks like the familiar acts as the spell book.
Yeah, it's a living spell book.
But it's really weird because I'm not entirely sure, and I would love to have some language that would cement this because right now I feel like it's interpretive. I'm not entirely sure if you are forbidden from casting the spell if your familiar is gone.
Well, I'm kind of looking at it where the language says the familiar is a conduit to your spells. It's a link between you and your patron. So if your link is severed, you no longer have that link with your patron until you get another familiar. That's how I'm interpreting it.
And again, it's interpretive, but I don't feel it's definitive. Maynard makes a good point. So unless the familiar bit explicitly says otherwise, it would be that you would lose the spell casting ability if the familiar dies. Otherwise, it would be ridiculous. And I agree. Like that's kind of a big thing. Like, yes, there's a lot of um, importance to keeping your familiar alive because in so many games of like other tabletops, if your familiar dies, it's like, oh no, I'll see it again in an hour. So there's really not any.
Yeah.
There's no. But at the same time, to lose your entire character class basically for losing your familiar for the day is a bit too harsh. So I think what this comes down to is a matter of GM interpretation.
Hmm.
Like I could see that you could only cast the spells that you have prepared. You could not do anything spontaneous, and you would not be able to prepare spells until the creature comes back, which honestly would be next day preparation anyway. It sounds like.
Yeah. And you wouldn't
Um,
be able to learn new spells like by feeding your familiar because your familiar's dead.
Malice has offered you would still any prepared spells you haven't used are still usable if your familiar dies.
Hmm.
So any prepared spells you haven't used are still usable. That makes sense. Uh, so basically, you don't lose your spell slots and the spells you've prepared into that spell slot,
Hmm.
which also tells me cantrips on the table. Now, here's the thing. I don't mind playing with the idea that if your familiar dies, your magic is gone for the day as like a grizzly system, you know? I think that could be a really cool hard mode that some players may like in small doses.
Hmm.
But moving right along. Um, heightened spells and cantrips are the same as they are in every other caster class. Um, basically, you can put a spell slot into a higher level. It will get a better effect. Cantrips automatically level up equal to your level, half rounded up. So that's why cantrips are great. They're just always leveling up.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover hexes, Mr. Michael Powell?
Okay. Actually, I'm surprised we are we going to talk about the lessons or is that coming up?
I think the lessons are later.
Okay.
Yeah, lessons are, at least in the book anyway. I'm sure the resource you have compiled might have it a bit more streamlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lessons and themes are, at least in my book,
Hmm.
the book after the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take care of the hexes. Give me a second.
Which, by the way, also, I love the script that you're using for this. The font
Hmm.
looks really nice.
Oh, thanks. All right, the hexes. If I could find the hexes here. Ah, hexes. Your Patreon and familiar teach you special spells called hexes. A hex is a short-term effect drawn directly from your patron's magic. As such, you can only cast one hex each turn. Attempts to cast a second hex spell on that turn will fail and spellcasting actions are lost. Hexes are a type of focus spells. It costs one focus point to cast a focus spell and you start with a focus point of one focus pool. You refill your focus pool during your daily preparations, and you can regain one focus point by spending 10 minutes using the refocus ability to commune with your familiar. Focus spells are automatically heightened to half your level rounded up. So, yeah, hexes are basically just familiar spells for witches.
Yeah, they are the focus spell, the focus points mechanic for them.
Mm.
But I mean, I love those. They're
Yeah,
free powers and magic. You can't go
yeah,
wrong.
and at level 1, I believe you learn the phase familiar hex, which you could cast as a reaction to protect your familiar from harm. You learn most other hexes from which lessons really quickly. Let's check out what phase familiar does. It's a somatic reaction. Trigger is your familiar would take damage. Range is 60 feet, and it targets your familiar. You draw upon your patron's power to momentarily shift your familiar from its solid physical form to a kind of a phase version of a shell in the shape of kind of a mist. Your familiar gains a resistance of 5 to all damage and is immune to precision damage. These apply only against the triggering damage.
So basically, it gives you a defensive spell for your familiar, which is going to be pretty important. It's
Yeah,
kind of like how the summoner has their eidolon. Your familiar is going to be just
yeah,
as important.
yeah.
Uh,
The only thing is your eidolon. I mean, your familiar can't fight like your eidolon.
yeah, absolutely. Also,
Yeah.
Mr. Michael Powell,
Oh,
you're getting a
there's
compliment
also.
on your horns.
Oh, thank you, thank you. There's also hex cantrips. Hex cantrips are special hexes that don't cost focus points, so you can cast them as often as you like. Though you can still only cast one hex each round. Hex cantrips are in addition to the cantrips you choose with your witch spellcasting and aren't counted toward your prepared cantrips. Your hex cantrips are determined by your Patreon theme.
So it's a lot like how when we were going over the playtesting for the Summoner, again, they had focus powers and focus cantrips.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same thing, although it's more flavored with the school of hexes and that design. But moving right along, because you already got like the long breakdown of features, not feats. Skill feats at second, witch feats at second, general feats at third, skill increase at third. That's actually pretty good. You get a skill increase pretty quickly, I think, to kind of help with the fact that you don't have a lot at start. Ability boost at fifth, like everyone gets. Ancestry boost as well. Magical fortitude at fifth. Your proficiency rank in fortitude is now an expert at fifth level. Not too bad considering you are a squishy caster. Speaking of which, your spellcasting DC and bonuses are now considered expertly trained at 7th. Lightning reflexes at 9. So your reflex is now an expert as well. Alertness, your proficiency in perception is now an expert. Let's see here. Weapon expertise. You have now expert in simple weapons and unarmed attacks. And that's at 11th level. Not really much of a fighter, but it's there to help with the balance.
You're a spellcaster.
Yeah, very much so. Defensive robes, unarmored defense is increased to expert at 13th. Weapon specialization at 13th. You do more damage, 2, 3, 4, respectively, depending on your expertise. Master spellcaster, your DC is increased to master at 15th, which is really good. I think most people get it about here or 17.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to see, and I'm sure they exist probably for Wizard, I have yet to see a legendary DC, but we'll probably get there. Resolve, 17th level. Your will is now increased to master, your willpower save. When you roll success on a will save, you get critical success instead. Love those crit successes. Mm-hmm. 19th level, you get legendary spellcaster. There it is.
There you go.
There it is. At 19th level, your DC is now legendarily trained, which is, okay, math time. I've never thought about this and just hurt my skull. So it would be 10 plus 19 plus 8. It would be 37 DC at 19th level.
Yep. But also at 19th level, you're going to be facing off against enemies who actually might able to hit that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some stupid bonuses at level 19, which is really fun. You get to say insane words like, does a 52 hit? And the DM gets to say dumb shit like, no. What? Why? Actually, 52 will probably still hit most things at 19th level.
Honestly, DMs, scale your enemies to your PCs, or you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciate about the features. They may seem boring, but it is where a lot of the core balance comes from. You're gonna find a lot of like warrior classes getting massive damage bonuses. And like, dear God, on top of their strength, magical weapons, not even counting feats, they get a +8. It's like, yeah, but you're going to be fighting things with some stupid HP levels, which is fun if you can balance accordingly.
Like Titans or Ancient Dragons, yeah. That's the stuff you're going to be facing off when you get to, late game.
Yeah, and it's great to know that there is a Tarrasque out there that you can actually kill through a challenging boss slog, and not just because it decides to nope all of your attacks. Mm-hmm. Like some editions where they're like, let's just make it not that he's hard to kill, you just won't kill him.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
So the capstone feature after you become a legendary spellcaster. Oh, and I think I've also neglected to put their intelligence in there. So let's say that 37 is, or whatever I said, was potentially now a 42. But Patron's Gift at 19th level. Your patron grants you the power to command incredible works of magic. This is basically you get your 10th level witch spell per day. And as Malice made a very good point in pointing out in other versions of this, you can take a feat later to get 2 10th level spells a day. So the witch not only gets to have, I think, the biggest lexicon of knowledge or magic without having to have all the hard work of having a book, but they get up to 1 to 10th level spells, all witchy. Um, the feat, by the way, to get to 10th level spells is called Patron's Truth. So we'll review that once we get to the level 20 feats. And it does seem like they get less spells a day, even though they are a 1 to 10 caster. So I have a feeling there's probably going to be some bonus spells kind of stored in your
Yeah,
living book for a weasel.
there's some of the witches' hexes I gave a really quick glance through, and they're actually pretty powerful.
I'm looking forward to that. I
Hmm.
always loved the hex. Like, I always felt like in Pathfinder 1, ooh, almost knocked over my screen. I felt like in Pathfinder 1, the hexes they were fun, but for something that was so unique to them, it didn't have the oomph necessary to make it stack up well against other casters that would never get the feat. But it just felt kind of it was creative and interesting, but it lacked power. So now I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see how the new witch stacks up against the old witch.
And speaking of which, should we talk about the lessons or the patron themes now?
Let's talk about the patron themes, because, well, it comes first in my book. What I love about the patron themes is that this is where you are starting to get the type of witch that you're playing. Kind of like with sorcery, you have bloodlines, right? In wizards, you have schools. With the witch, you have your patron, and this is where a lot of your flavor, as well as other powers, are going to come from.
Oh, really quick. Just give me a moment, guys.
Sure, sure.
Let's go on the. Let's do the be right back screen really quick, okay?
All right, sure thing. We'll be right back. Hey, sorry about that. We had some brief technical difficulties for people thinking that it was a coffee break. I wish. The coffee is actually gone. There's
Oh yeah.
no more coffee. Um, so, picking up where we left off, patrons. The patrons are kind of like how you're flavoring your witch and some cool powers they get. So there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different witch patrons. And each patron gives you a spell list that you're going to choose from, a patron skill, that's of course mentioned earlier, the hex cantrip that you get, your little focus cantrip, and a special granted spell directly from your patron. So the
Hmm.
first one, if you don't mind, Mike, I'll start, and then you can
Sure you
take the
go.
next one.
Sure.
The first one is Curse. Sounds pretty good standard witch stuff. Foiling foes and undermining those who stand in your way are the tools of the curse patrons. So again, it's not like other games where you are so hardcore locked into what the patron is. You're more so locked into the concept of the patron. So you can be a cursed undead. You can be a cursed demon, devil, fae, hag, witch, dragon. You could be a cursed, like abomination, eldritch god, whatever the curse is coming from. So really have fun with that, or even an idea, like a group of gods working together. So curse. Your spell list is occult. You're going to be getting those kind of bardy spells, those mind control spells, those spoopy spells. And of course, your skill is occultism. Makes sense, right? Your hex cantrip is Evil Eye. And your granted spell is Ray of Enfeeblement. So the Evil Eye, I'm guessing, I haven't looked at it, but I'm guessing it's like the Evil Eye in the other games where you basically look at someone, they make a will save, and if they don't save, they're going to get some pretty harsh debuffs.
Do you want me to give you what the Evil Eye does?
Sure, hit me with that Evil Eye.
All right. Let's see. It's a one-action somatic spell, range of 30 feet, targets one creature, saving throw of willpower, and its duration is sustained up to a minute. You fix your eye on a target, imposing a malevolent hex. The target becomes frightened based on the results of its save. The condition value can't be reduced below 1 while the spell is active, and you can see the target. Regardless of the outcome, the target is then temporarily immune for 1 minute.
Nice.
So basically, intimidation spell, I want to say.
Yeah, which is cool because, like, let's say you don't have that training. You can slam that cantrip down and scare people all day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see here, 238. Yeah, I might have to look at these back and forth. Also, Ray of Enfeeblement. At level 1, that's a great spell because if you're fighting a strength-based character like an orc and you just drain them of their strength, they're screwed. At level 1, they got nothing to offer, and you just stomp them. Also, Malice said, "Heathen, never say those words again. The coffee is never gone." I approve. In the Church of the Bean, I approve, but sadly my cup is broken, and I will fill it at the break. You want to get Fate?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Michael Brown?
Next one is Fate. Through your Patreon, you can you gain a glimpse of the future and insight into the ever-woven tapestry of time. Pretty much, I want to say it's fortune tellers, kind of. It's basically a fortune teller. Your spell list is occult. Your patron skill is occultism. Your hex cantrip is called Nudge Fate, which, let's see what it does. It's a one-action verbal spell. Well, hex spell. Hex cantrip. Range of 30 feet, targets one creature, saving throw of will, and duration sustained up to a minute. You read slightly into the future and give Fate a tiny push to achieve the result you desire. Once during the duration, when the target fails an attack roll, skill check, or saving throw, and a +1 bonus would turn a critical failure into a failure, or a failure into a success, you grant the target a +1 status bonus to the check retroactively, changing the outcome appropriately. The spell then ends, and the target is temporarily immune for 1 minute.
So yeah, that's an interesting cantrip because it's only +1, and sometimes that could make the difference. Like, for example, when Tico in episode 1 of Nightmare of Daltonshire was instantly killed when someone bit off his head, his check to escape would have been a 17 or above, and Ian rolled a 16. Now, had a witch been there and cast this, Tico would not have died then. But it's really hard to know when that +1, would turn the tide. It really does depend on how communicative your GM wants to be about such matters.
And your granted spell is True Strike, which, it's alright. It's alright.
Yeah, I always... Hey, how's it going, Caleb?
Hey, Caleb.
Lurking at work. Hey, man, it's quarantine. Lurk away, man. Have fun. Enjoy the conversation. We're talking about The Witch in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So if you want to talk about, like, all the cool features of the Witch class, just in time for Halloween, and maybe some cool Witch builds you can come up with, please stick around and let's lurk at work together.
Yeah.
Hey, they're paying you to show up. They're not paying you to
There
care.
you go. There you go.
Let's see. So next up on the different patron themes, you got fervor, and again, the cool thing about this is that anything can grant you fervor. A demon could give you fervor. Cthulhu could give you fervor. An angel could give you fervor. You're free to play with that as much as you want.
Yeah.
Your patron represents a grand ideal or goal, granting you magic to further their mission and bring others to the cause. I love the idea because what what entity does not believe it to be correct, right? So this could literally go in any direction. Your spell list is divine. Oh, I'm a huge sucker for divine spells. That's me personally. Your patron skill is religion. Hex trip, hex cantrip, stoke the heart, and your granted spell is command. Command is always good at bottom levels, starting levels, because
do you
you
want me
get
to
that sweet mind control.
do you want me to tell
Oh,
you
I was
what
gonna
stoke
actually,
the heart does?
well, I was gonna look that
Okay.
up myself.
Alrighty.
Stoke the heart. It's a one-action verbal spell cast, range 30 feet. One creature sustained up to a minute. It's a roll to hit, I think. Nope, just a buff. Intense fervor fills the target creature, empowering their blows. Hold on a minute while I have a conniption here. The target gets a +2 status bonus to damage. Once the spell ends, the target becomes temporarily immune for a minute. When it's heightened by 2 levels or more, the damage increased by 1. So you're just given +2, +3, +4 damage willy-nilly to people. Good God.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, I think it's for every 2 levels, the damage is increased by +1, but that still means 20th level, you're granting, like, and I'm probably reading this wrong, but if I am reading it correctly, that means at 20th level, this cantrip will grant a plus, 12? 10 to 12 bonus damage that lasts for 1 minute? That's most of combat. And then they're immune for 1 minute. Oh no. That's insane.
Yeah.
Is it concentration? Great question. It is sustained. Yes. Well, okay. So this is a little different than in other games. Other games, they have concentration spells, and you can't do 2 concentration spells at once because you can only concentrate on one thing at a time. This is sustained, which means you have to spend an action to maintain the spell. I don't believe that you can cast 2 spells that require sustaining at the same time. However, a lot of spells don't require to be sustained. So you can spend 1 action to keep the buff going, and then you can spend 2 actions to cast Fireball. I don't know if which gets Fireball, but I'm using that as an example. So it's good. It's a really good level 1 cantrip. Dear God. You throw that on Barbarian and step back.
Yeah. The next one is Night. Your patron speaks from the shadows, granting you power over darkness and dreams. So, I can see this from a night hag kind of point of view. Your patron's kind of like a night hag or something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the spell list is occult. Your patron skill is occultism. Your hex cantrip is called Shroud of Night. And let's see, it's a 1 action somatic hex cantrip spell. A range of 30 feet, targets 1 creature, saving throw of willpower, and a duration of sustain up to 1 minute. Drawing your hand into a sweeping gesture, you shroud the target in a veil of night. The target's eyes are blanketed in darkness. If you cast this hex on a willing ally, for instance, one with light blindness, the ally can choose which result it gets without rolling. Regardless of the outcome, the target is then temporarily immune for 1 minute. So, essentially, you cast darkness. That's what I'm getting from this.
I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like a pretty, I don't want to say basic, but like a pretty solid early level crowd control spell.
And the granted spell is Sleep, which is actually also very useful at low levels.
Mm-hmm. Malice was making a good point. You can only cast 1. I'm sorry, you can only sustain one spell at a time. It's very true. Now, I haven't looked over the entirety of all the magics, but I will say from what I've seen, it appears that, and I might be wrong here, it appears that there are less spells that require sustaining than those that require concentration in other games. So put up a buff on someone, and then just cast your one-offs, cast your cantrips. I think really, basically what it comes down to is you're not going to be stacking buffs on buffs on buffs. But
Yeah.
with a potential of plus 12 damage at level 20, you shouldn't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what is next? We got the knight. Rune. I just like this concept. I like the idea of like the runes are your patron. Your patron is one of sigils and symbols, tomes and texts, words and wisdom. I feel like now we're getting into kind of the Norse concept of witchcraft and magic, and I think that's
Yeah.
gonna be really fun.
Like, yeah.
Let's see here, Rune. Oh, it's funny Maynard says you're hella wizardy because your patron skill and your spell list are both the arcane
Mm-hmm.
spells. So you're getting fireball.
There you go.
Your hex cantrip is discern secrets, and discern secrets does. Am I on rituals? I'm on rituals. Let's go over a bit more. So discern secrets. It is a one action somatic, range 30 feet, one creature, sustained up to a minute. You call upon your patron's power to better uncover secrets. When you cast the spell, the target can recall knowledge, seek, or sense motive. They get a +1 status bonus to the skill or perception used for the roll. And this bonus remains as long as you sustain the spell. The target is temporarily immune to discern secrets for 1 minute after the minute is up. So this gives you a good buff for skill checks for either you or someone else in the party. And because this is a status bonus, I don't remember if guidance is status bonus or divine bonus, but effectively speaking, those could potentially stack for at least as long as guidance lasts. It's not bad. It's a good buff spell. Reap Psyche put, can only sustain one so far.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be a feat or something down the line that you can sustain more than one at some point.
Maybe. That would be, gosh, that could be amazing. I feel like at that point we have, there's a thing called the heal lamp. You set it, forget it, you turn it on, and then you just let it heal you.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I had this with Pathfinder First Edition. We had to work really hard to get it to work, but it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. But I could see it being very boring. The buff lamp. You turn on the lamp, it just buffs everyone around you, and I can see it being really cool, but also really boring at the same time. Like, okay, who wants to be the buff lamp? And someone's like, I will, fine. Here's my 3 spells. You're welcome. I'll sit back and do nothing.
And also, what's your granted spell for that?
Oh, right. Thank you for reminding me. Magic weapon. Great at first level as well.
All right.
Basically gives you a +1 to hit, counts as magic, adds an extra weapon die.
Yeah,
Really
it's good for lower level games where, for some reason, your DM throws a creature at you that can't be hurt with normal weapons.
I mean, I kind of like it even endgame because it adds 1 to hit and it adds a whole weapon die. And I mean, granted, if the weapon's already magic, I don't think it works. I'll have to go back over the spells. Wow, I actually hit myself in the head. I compound so much information that sometimes I don't know if I'm remembering it fully or not. So bear with me as I forget stuff.
All right, the next one is the next one is wild. The wild places of the world feel the touch of your patron. So this one's kind of like, this is basically your druid. This is a patron that this is a witch that kind of lives in the woods. Sticks, twigs, bones, that kind of thing. Your spell list is primal, your patron skill is nature, and your hex cantrip is called Wildling Word, which, let's see what it does. It's a 1-action verbal spell, range of 30 feet, targets 1 animal, fungus, or plant. Saving throw of will, duration of sustain up to 1 minute. With a few words, you convince a wild creature you are a kindred spirit, making it reluctant to harm you. The target must attempt a will save. Regardless of the outcome, the target is then temporarily immune for 1 minute.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well,
Yeah,
so
it's
the list of effects is basically either it takes a -2 status penalty to the roll that it's about to do against you, or it just gets either sickened 1 or sickened 2.
hmm
It's okay.
yeah.
Um,
It just
yeah.
basically tells Smokey the Bear not to maul you.
Only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can chill, Smokey. Chill.
hmm And your granted spell is your choice of summon animal or summon plant or fungus, which honestly is that would be the reason to take this patron because honestly summoning anything to add one more body meat shield into a grinder is always helpful.
Absolutely. And I'm loving everyone talking in the chat. Thank you, Reeps, for saying I'm so buff. I haven't worked out in some days. I'm very glad. Also, I'm loving the reference to I'm going to butcher their name, Stefan Shizik's Poison Ivy. Um, Now, that's a very good question, Maynard. Does the Stoke of the Heart apply to spell attacks? It does say damage rolls. It doesn't specify melee. It doesn't specify spells. This could be interpretive, but since it is so generic, I would say damage. Period. That's just me though. But I don't
hmm
know. How would you feel about that, Mr. Michael Powell? If say a witch looks at a high level wizard and goes stoke the heart level 20, here's a +12 to your fireball attack.
First, I might, depending on which side of the table I'm sitting as, I might flip the table.
What I love about that, I'm sorry, I'm eating an apple, so my mouth is full,
hmm
is that like depending on where I'm sitting. So what I'm hearing is, if I'm a GM, I hate you, but if I'm a player, yeah, kill that Tarask.
Or if you're a player and you are in ground zero of that fireball.
Like the meme says, it's called splash damage, wussy. If you don't like it, go bitch the cleric.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that monkey puppet meme where it just stares like slowly stares back at you.
God, yeah. Can you imagine a 10th level fireball with plus 12 damage? No, I'm just using that as an example. I mean, there are 10th level spells that just rewrite plot for you, but just numbers alone scares me.
hmm
All right, so yes, now the witch has their uber buff thing. I think we're all agreeing that fervor is awesome because
hmm
it's cherry. Um, Winter, I believe, is the last one, and I love about winters because you can be like a Baba Yaga of sorts. You can kind of like do the Rime of the Frost Maiden in Pathfinder with this. You can have a lot of fun. Um, your patron reflects the frozen reaches of the world, bitterly cruel to those who underestimate that power. Your spell list is primal, much like the wild, and of course, your patron skill is nature. You get Clinging Ice. And what does Clinging Ice do? I'm so glad you asked. Clinging Ice, there it is. It's a somatic one action cantrip. So that's awesome because you're basically getting a spell for only one action instead of two. 30 feet, one creature, reflex saving throw, sustained up for a minute. Freezing sleet and heavy snowfall collect at the target's feet and legs, dealing 1d4 cold damage and other effects depending on the reflex save. So now you have damage and effect. Once the spell ends, they're immune for a minute. Critical success, the target is unaffected beyond the 1d4 damage. No, they actually don't. They don't take any damage at all. Okay, good to know. On a success, the target takes half of 1d4. Failure, the target takes full damage of the 1d4, and they take a -5 circumstance penalty to the speed of that creature until the minute is over. Critical fail, they take double the damage, and they take a -10-foot circumstance penalty until the spell ends. And because this is a damage, or I should say an attacking cantrip, it is heightened every level. Like the effect is heightened every level, so not like every 2 levels. This increases the damage by 1d4. So at level 20, looking at the end game, this cantrip will do about 9 to 11 d4, depending on how bad my math is right now. So about 10 d4 on average. You're doing 10 d4 damage with a cantrip that will knock down their speed by 5 or 10 feet for one action. One. You can still cast another spell so long as it's not concentration, or in this case, so long as it's not needing to be sustained. You can do 10 d4 and then throw something else out the window.
Yeah. Yep. That's all I'm gonna say. Yep. Yep.
It's real good. And then your granted spell is Gust of Wind, which is a good crowd control spell. Probably not gonna be doing a lot of damage with that, but the fact that you now have this potent, ice screw you spell in the back pocket end game, it's gonna be really nice.
Yeah. Also, really quickly, let's see. I believe Malice says in Legends they have a Baba Yaga theme, which I was actually planning on mentioning. In the Pathfinder Lost Omens Legends book, there is a Baba Yaga theme, and let's just throw this one in the mix, okay?
Okay. Let me hear it. I'm really excited about it.
All right. It's a rare patron. Baba Yaga teaches you how to transfer spirits into objects and freeze your foes. A witch with Baba Yaga as their patron can choose an inanimate object as a familiar. So kind of like the brooms from Fantasia. If they do, they can still gain master abilities and some familiar abilities that don't require movement. The object familiar has no speed and must select a speed familiar ability before it can move, coming to life in a way appropriate to the chosen speed and using the statistic of a normal familiar of that for that day. So yeah, like I said, a broom from Fantasia or the magic carpet from Disney's Aladdin.
I really like that. This sounds like a lot of fun. I also like it because, Baba Yaga exists in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
If you remember Pathfinder 1, they had Reign of Winter, which was an awesome book. It was one of the last module campaigns I played in Pathfinder 1 before life got crazy. Baba Yaga's for real. So what's really cool is that they're giving that entity so much more reality and power. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, the spell list is Occult, the patron skill is Nature, and the Hex cantrip is called Spirit Object. Let's see really quickly what that does. Alright, it's a 1 or 2 somatic verbal action spell, the range of 30 feet, and targets one unattended object up to 1 bulk. Using a sliver of Baba Yaga's power, you briefly bring an object to life. The object gains a means of locomotion such as sprouting chicken legs and striding up to 25 feet to a space you decide within range. If you spend 2 actions casting the spell, the object then attacks one creature of your choice adjacent to its new space. Make a melee spell attack roll against the creature. On a success, the creature takes bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage as appropriate for the object, equal to 1d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. And on a critical success, it takes double damage. And once it's heightened, you can increase the maximum bulk of the target by 1 and the damage by 1d4.
So you could basically be Baba Yaga and legit throw your house at people.
Yeah. Or you could also, pretty much, it's like a summon creature spell, essentially.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do. Oh, and that reminds me. I don't know if we already said this for the wild. Oh yeah, no, you already said it. My bad. My brain's been scattered. I like that. I have to go. Man, that's another book I really want to get now. Damn it! Now I want to buy Lost Worlds Icons.
Lost Omens.
Lost Omens, thank you.
Lost
World.
Omens Legends.
Lost. What, you mean Lost World Icons isn't the same as Lost Omens Legends? Jeez, where's my brain? It's in my ass. Oh no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say the granted spell is Chilling Spray. Chilling Spray.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, I can see that. So yeah, it still kind of fits the winter theme. It combines a lot of things. It combines the occultism of Baba Yaga with obviously the nature that she lives in, the cold that she's from, the cruelty that she acts with. It's complicated, but it works. It's a very
Yeah,
smart
like
build for that.
yeah, like Malice posted a broomstick of doom.
I love that. Yeah, because yeah, a high level broom. Good lord, all the
Hmm.
D4s out of that broom. That broom is going to become like a paladin of cleanliness.
Yeah.
No dust shall escape my sight.
Hmm. Or like
Um,
I said, it sprout legs on a refrigerator or something, or a cold box or something, or a bed. Oh, you could do a bed like
yes.
bed knobs
Oh
and
my god.
broomsticks. Or I butch. It's a different name. Bed knobs and
Bed knobs,
broomsticks.
bed knobs and broomsticks. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
could, in theory, like make it move, right? So you could just
yeah,
lay in bed and have your bed travel everywhere for you.
yeah. Or
Wow, it's
Return to Oz. Pretty much all that objects that there was literally a bed with a head of a moose and a bunch of other junk kind of tied onto it.
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So that sounds like a lot of fun. If you like playing around with making basically if you like to anthropomorphize like
Hmm.
all items. So the customization doesn't end there. Not only do you get to pick your theme, you get to pick your lessons. And as it states that you can get basic lessons and you can also get feats for more lessons down the road.
Hmm.
And lessons, I think, to basically do a further job of customizing your OC witch. Like you have this really cool patron, but what is that patron trying to teach you in guiding you to their own um, power and agenda, right? So you had the lesson of dreams. So you could be like a night witch of dreams, or you could be a fervor witch of dreams. You know how you want to play that off.
Yeah.
You gain the Veil of Dreams hex, and your familiar learns the sleep spell. I should say that not only do you learn a new hex, but you also learn a new spell for your familiar. And the veil, where is it? Veil of
Veiled
Dreams.
dreams.
One action somatic, range 30 feet, one creature will save, sustain up to a minute. You draw the target into a drowsy state, causing daydreams and sluggishness. The target must attempt a will save. They are either unaffected, -1 penalty to perception, attack, and will saves, which is then the -2 for will saves against sleep effects on a success. On a success, they still get penalized, so consider that. And a failure, if they fail, same as success, except anytime the target uses a concentration action, they must succeed a DC flat 5 check or the action is disrupted and lost. So what I love about Veil of Dreams is that even if they succeed, they're still taking the debuff. Really, really good, what's I'm looking for? Reliability on this spell. They basically would have to crit the save to take nothing from it. So it's pretty good hex debuff.
Yeah. The next one is Lesson of Life. It's a basic lesson, and you gain the Life Boost hex, and your familiar learns Spirit Link. See the Life Boost hex. Let's see what it does. It's a one action spell, range of 30 feet, targets one creature, and has a duration of 4 rounds. You temporarily bolster the target's vitality. The target gains fast healing equal to double the spell's level. Not bad. You basically get a little regeneration for a
Yeah,
couple of
I mean,
turns.
that's really not bad, especially
Yeah,
considering how important that is endgame.
yeah, yeah. Essentially, you could basically make your witch into a secondary healer this way.
Yeah. Which is good. The more healing you have, the more
Yeah,
flexibility you get.
yeah,
Let's see here. So you just did Lessons of Life?
yeah.
Okay. Uh, Lessons of the Elements. You get the Element Betrayal Hex. I don't know why that makes me laugh. One action verbal, 30 feet, one creature, sustained up to a minute. You call upon the elements to undermine your foe. When you cast a spell, you can choose air, earth, fire, or water. No heart, sorry. Each time the target takes damage from a spell or effect with a chosen trait, it takes an additional 2 damage of 1 damage type dealt by the spell or effect. If you choose fire or water, the target also takes this additional damage when taking fire or cold damage, respectively, from effects or spells without that chosen trait. And for every 2 levels over the first that is heightened, increases that damage by 1. So you talk about that fireball spell. You talk about having damage cold effects, area cold effects. This spell would enhance that. And what I love about it is that, like, let's say you choose earth. So you're doing earth or acid damage, whatever. But if you decide to choose fire or water, they take that damage from effects or spells even without fire or water built into the listing of it, which is interesting. I wonder. I guess because like so many spells are fire and cold. I guess.
And I would say also electricity.
Yeah, and electricity and thunder and sonic and all that good stuff. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and did you say what spell your familiar learns?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because you get
I'm
your
always
choice.
reminding you, PJ. This is why we're a good team.
Oh no, I appreciate it because I'm going back and forth in this book. Your familiar learns your choice of. So get this. So you get this ability to basically make them take more damage from an elemental spell. And what do you learn? Your choice of Burning Hands, Air Bubble, Hydraulic Push, or Pummeling Rubble. You just get another arcane damage spell. So if you are stuck with like Occult, you now get just a little bit of arcane.
Yeah, you're essentially a bender from Avatar: The Last Airbender, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. It's fun. I like that.
All right.
I like that.
The next one is Lesson of Protection. You gain the Blood Ward Hex, and your familiar learns Mage Armor. Your Blood Ward Hex. Let's see what that does, because that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a 1-action somatic spell, range of 30 feet, targets one creature, and can be sustained up to a minute. You consolidate warding energies with a gesture, guarding a creature against attacks from a certain type of foe. Designate one type of the following creature trait: apparition, animal, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, fungus, monitor, ooze, plant, or undead. The target gains a +1 status bonus to saving throws and AC against creatures of that trait. The target is temporarily immune for 10 minutes, and if it's heightened, the status bonus increases to +2. That's, like I said, those are good lower level ones for a little added layer of protection, and actually kind of reminds me of kind of like the Rangers, favored enemy ability in other games, except reversed.
Yeah. What I like about it is that it caps out at level 2, but considering it is a status bonus that can basically make your core defenses stronger, it can stack with other buffs and spells that are also not status. And you can also give this to, I know I abuse this metaphor, but it's a very potent one, the Barbarian. Yep. They already have a high DR. Maybe they got some other thing that gives them temp HP. On top of that, they're harder to hit. They're better at saving. It's a really great combination.
Yeah. All right. There's one more for you there for the basic lessons there.
The Lesson of Vengeance. I just love the name. So your familiar gets Phantom Pain, which probably going to be a nice retaliatory spell. But the Needle of Vengeance Hex. Needle of Vengeance. I almost have it. There it is. 1-action somatic, 30 feet, 1 enemy. What I love is that the saving throw is called Basic Will. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Oh, it's a Basic Will.
It's Basic Will. You know, Basic William if you want to be formal.
Yeah. What is it? But call me William Saturday for nasty. Duration up to a minute, like all these spells do. A long, jagged needle jabs into the target foe's psyche whenever it tries to attack a specifically forbidden creature. That just sounds amazing. Name yourself or one of your allies. The target takes 2 mental damage anytime it uses a hostile action against the named creature. Hostile action. In theory, that doesn't mean they have to hit. Roll to attack, try to grapple, anything that would be considered a hostile action. And here's the great thing about that. They take 2 mental damage every time. Every level that the spell is heightened, 1 for 1, it goes up another 2 mental damage. So you get to level 20. This bad boy is doing, I think my math may be screwy here, but I want to say at level 20 it does 20 bonus mental damage. Anytime a hostile action is taken, you mark the tank with this thing. Every time anyone is going to hit the tank, which of course they're gonna because he's the tank, that's his job. Hit me, bro. They're going to be taking a free 20 mental damage. Now, they may have resistance or immunity, but it's free damage.
Yeah. I mean, heck, your hostile action could be even, I'm going to call you a hurtful thing.
Yeah, and then they kind of go, I have a
Yeah,
head.
so I'm kind of like, now in my head, you can also use this for social situations too.
You totally could. And that's what's crazy about it. Now, granted, there's still a will save,
Yeah,
but it's a basic will save.
basic will.
Um, yeah, and the cool thing is, if you were playing at home with builds, that's the lesson, not the patron. You could combine fervor and, well, you could, but you couldn't stack these buffs, so it's kind of moot. But you could still stack this amazing debuff with any other attack spell that you get from any other
Or
lesson.
if your party has more than one witch sustains this, the other witch sustains that.
Also true. So, I mean, I would love to do a deep dive into a bard because now I really want to compare witches to bards. Because I feel like the bard's big shtick has always been, I buff the party and I debuff the enemy. And if you're an a-hole player, you're like, and I flirt with a dragon. Ugh, I hate it. But now that we have such interesting hex cantrip buffs from the witch, I really want to compare and contrast with the bard.
Yeah, PJ, I just realized something.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it's been getting kind of popular. All same class, parties. What if you have a party of just witches? So a coven of witches, literally a coven of witches.
I would love to do a one-shot experiment on like a coven campaign, all witches. However, I think eventually it would come down to the wire of like, okay, who's going to be the defensive witch? Because these guys have bad HP, and they have right now.
That's when you multi-class. That's when you multi-class.
True, yeah, true.
Because honestly, I'm holding this. I got a multi-class idea, but I'm gonna hold it on to the end of this video because I want to talk about it because it's a witch that I want to play that I just realized.
Nice. I don't know why I always multi-class with barbarian. Let's try something a little different. What if we multi-classed with a champion? A champion witch could be kind of fun. Especially when it's like you're trying to you know that your patron has an agenda and now you're actually trying to embrace it, but you're constantly confused because they're always playing secrets with you. So it's like, I'm here in the name of my patron. What do they want? I'm working on it.
Exactly know.
I'm working on it.
All right. Anyway, let's move on to greater lessons now before we go too off track.
Yeah, too late.
Yeah. Greater lessons. This lesson will be for you Loki players out there, people who like the tricks, the shenanigans, and the tomfoolery. You gain the deceiver's cloak hex You gain the deceiver's cloak hex, and your familiar learns the spell Mad Monkeys. I need to look that spell up later on because, yeah, just because of that name alone, Mad Monkey's the spell. But anyway, Deceiver's Cloak Hex, let's see what that does. It's a 2-action somatic verbal spell, duration of sustain. You wrap yourself up in a cloak of illusions, appearing as another creature of the same body shape with roughly similar height and weight as yourself. This has the effects of a 3rd level illusionary disguise. If it's heightened at level 6, you can appear as any creature of the same size, even with a completely different body shape.
So it's good for role playing
So
kind of
social games.
Very much so, which is still very important.
Like I said, this lesson's for you Loki players out there.
Yeah, you like to you want to go. Oh no, I have dethroned Odin. Now I'm Odin. Haha.
Yeah.
And twist spoiler of Thor 2.
Hmm.
Next up, Lesson of Shadow. So if you just really want to go full dark, you can do Night and Dream and Shadow. You get the malicious Shadow Hex, and your familiar learns Chilling Darkness. Let's take a look at that hex, though. Malicious Shadow. Nom, nom, nom. Somatic and verbal, 2 actions, 30 feet, 1 target, sustained up to a minute. You reshape the target's shadow into a deadly form, such as strangling hands, a dangerous weapon, harrying runes, or the like, and command it to attack the target. When you cast a spell, each time you sustain the spell, the shadow makes a strike against the target. The shadow moves along with the foe, always remaining within reach. If you sustain the spell multiple times in a round, you gain this effect each time. The shadow uses and contributes to your multiple attack penalty. Okay. The shadow strikes are melee spell attacks. Regardless of its shape, its shadow strikes always deal 1d10 plus your spellcasting modifier. Good lord. You choose the type of damage when you cast a spell, choosing from bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing. The shadow doesn't take up space, does not grant flanking, or have any other attributes a creature would. The shadow can't make any attacks other than its strike. The shadow vanishes if the target moves into an area of complete darkness, which is weird. Oh, because they don't cast a shadow. Or enters an area of light from all directions, such that the target doesn't cast a shadow anymore. If another effect is controlling the target's shadow when you cast the shadow spell, the malicious shadow, you can attempt to counteract that effect to temporarily take control of the shadow, but the original effect resumes when this ends. And it's heightened for every 2 levels to do a bonus 1d10. So let's talk about this. Let's brainstorm this because this is disgusting. You basically now have you have basically summoned a creature, and that creature is a CR3 creature that follows this person around forever. You can sustain it up to a minute. That's basically the entire fight. And you can have it attack all 3 actions of your turn, which means it's going to be doing, on average, if all 3 attacks hit, probably not those massive penalties, 3d10 plus your intelligence modifier 3 times. At level
Yeah.
20, that bad boy is going to be doing, what, like 10d10 plus... I'm just gonna average it out and say plus 5. 10d10 plus 5 3 times if you choose to. That's what, 30d10 plus 15 at endgame?
Yeah. And also, can I say this? Okay, for everybody out there who's also a otaku or weeb, you're essentially that one character from Naruto who can control the shadows.
I was thinking about that. Shikomaru. Shikomaru's my
Yeah.
man. You are Shikomaru. You are Zato One or Eddie from Guilty Gear.
Mm-hmm.
You are probably someone from Sin Eater. Like
Yeah.
you got all those awesome anime references you
Oh
can pull
yeah.
off.
Oh yeah. But
Ah,
anyway,
Shadow, so
yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Lesson of Snow. Lesson type is a greater. You gain the personal blizzard hex, and your familiar learns the spell Walls of Wind. Not too bad. Let's see what personal blizzard hex does. It's a 1 action somatic hex, range of 30 feet, targets 1 creature, saving throw of fortitude, duration is sustained up to a minute. You summon an isolated blizzard obscuring, scouring ice to follow your target. The target attempts a fortitude save. The critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target takes 1d6 cold damage and the spell ends. A failure, the target takes 1d6 cold damage and 1d6 persistent cold damage. The persistent damage automatically ends when the spell ends. Is concealed by other creatures, and the other creatures are concealed to it. And critical failure is, but both the cold damage and the persistent cold damage increase to 2d6.
I like that because it's only 1 action.
Hmm.
It's one action to create this ongoing cold damage effect that is increased by every one level. Now, granted, it's not 1d6 as it says. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm totally stepping on your toes. I apologize.
Oh, it's good. It's cool.
Um,
Go ahead.
hit them with what the heightened effect is.
Oh, see, heightened effect. Oh yeah, the heightened effect. The cold damage and persistent cold damage increases by 1, 2 on a critical failure.
So now you're not just doing raw d6s. You're doing the d6s plus like 1 damage plus 2 damage. At least I think so, because so
Yeah,
far we established if it increases the dice, it would say the dice is
yeah,
decreasing by. So so it's not as like spicy as say a 3d10 plus
mhm.
50, a 30. I'm sorry, 30 d10 plus 15, but what it is still consistent. It's guaranteed damage,
Yeah.
and it's a long game. You're playing a long
Mhm.
game that you don't have to invest much time in.
Yeah. My thing is, first of all, this is the spell you pop off as soon as possible. And also, I like this because this spell has two effects, if anything. It has that cold damage, and also you are the target gets essentially blinded.
Mm-hmm. And I love that they still take damage even if they succeed. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a ton, but it's it's really good free damage.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have major lessons. So you got basic, greater, major. As you take feats, and as
Yeah.
we're talking about feats,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
essentially went from middle school to let's see, went to elementary, middle school, no, middle school, high school. Now you're in college.
yeah, and we're going to start off with one that sounds very fun. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, this might bring some ideas to mind. The first major lesson is the lesson of death. And you learn the spell Raise Dead. So, hey, Necromancer, good for you. You also get Curse of the Death Hex. And Curse of the Death Hex, what do you do? Gonna find it in my book so I can read you. There it is. It's a two-action somatic and verbal component spell, range 30 feet, one target. That's, I think, so far pretty standard. Everything seems to be 30 feet, one target, will save or fortitude save in this case. Sustain to a minute. You focus your malevolent gaze on a target, causing their heart to seize in dread. The target must attempt a fortitude saving throw. Regardless of the result, the target is temporarily immune to further castings for 1 day. So no matter what, this is a high risk, high reward. This could screw up and then whatever. But critical success, unaffected. Success, the target is afflicted with the curse of death stage 1, and the stage of the curse can't increase beyond stage 1. So that sucks, but you're still giving them, no matter what, a strong penalty. Failure, they now have curse of death at stage 1, and it can grow.
Yeah.
Critical failure, it now starts at stage 2. Anything that starts at a stage above 1 is a middle finger, just putting that out there. What does the curse of death do, you might ask? I'm so glad, because here's what it is. It's a curse effect, of course. The curse ends immediately when the spell ends. So you have 1 minute to kill them. Here's what stage 1 does. If they take 4d6 negative damage and are fatigued for 1 round. So if they are taking 4d6 negative damage and are fatigued until the spell ends, that means for 1 minute, they're always taking 4d6 negative and they're always fatigued. That's bonkers. That's just on a
Yeah.
successful save.
Yeah.
Stage 2, 8d6 negative damage and fatigued 1 round. So it's double the damage and it can accumulate. And you can start off this way. 8d6 negative damage and fatigued 1 round every round as long as it's sustained. Stage 3. This is, of course, they're trying to fight it and they're failing to fight and it keeps building, right? 12d6 negative damage and fatigued for 1 round. Now, let's say you fail or critically fail enough times to get to stage 4. Death. They die. They straight up die.
Well, I mean,
There
it's called
is,
the curse of death for a reason.
I mean, you're not wrong. but it's just funny to me that like you critically fail twice and you insta die.
Hmm.
You critically fail the first time and then fail the next two subsequent checks, dead. Or you just fail 4 times in a row, you're dead. And heightened. This spell can get heightened. You increase the negative damage taken on a success and during the first 3 stages of the curse by 1d6. So even if they still need the save, they're getting 1d6 per heightened level. That's an extra 10d6. So at level 20, even if they're like, ha ha ha, I succeed, they're still taking 14d6 negative damage and are still fatigued. So like minuses for everything for a minute until they, I don't know, until they like succeed enough to wither away
Yeah.
the spell or the curse.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah. On the other side of the coin, we got the lesson of renewal. You gain the restorative moment hex, and your familiar learns field of life. See what restorative moment does. I think you got the better one. I'm pretty sure you got the better one of the two. But we'll see what restorative moment does. It's a 2-action somatic verbal spell, range of 30 feet, targets one creature. You manipulate the threads of time around the target, giving them some of the benefits of a day's passage. The target decreases the value of any doomed and drained conditions it has by 1 and can immediately attempt one saving throw against each affliction it has with a stage length of 1 day or less. The target then is temporarily immune for 1 day. So,
I feel like restorative movement is. Here's the thing.
Moment.
It's good only because moment. Thank you, restorative moment. I feel like it's only good because it directly affects the two worst effects in the game. Effects that are very hard to get rid of and can ultimately ensure that you will die. Doomed ups your death count by the value of your doom. So if you're doomed 4, you only have to drop once and you're insta-dead. Maybe not so much with like Die Hard. Maybe you get 1 round in, but it's very bad. Drained is horrible. It drains your current health, your maximum health, your strength, your save. Like it is the biggest FU, and it will definitely affect restorative checks to like, save yourself from death, like a saving throw would. So this is great for that. However, it doesn't do anything else.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can only use it once and they are then immune to it for a whole day, it can help with things like Doom and Drain that only go away on a good night's sleep. So maybe by the time they wake up, it's a 0. But I don't know. I feel weird about it. It's good, but very, very specific.
It's all right. It's
not a death curse.
Honestly, it's not lesson of death. That's for sure. Oh, and there is actually one more lesson. This one's also from the Lost Omens Legends book. Should we go through that one?
Ooh, yeah. Let me have
all right. This one is called The Lesson of the Frozen Queen. You gain the Glacial Heart Hex, and your familiar learns Wall of Ice. Let's see what it does. Oh, of course I get the big wall of text. It's a 2-action somatic verbal spell, range of 30 feet, targets one creature, saving throw of Fortitude, and it's a duration of 1 minute. Ice and bone-deep cold assail the target, freezing it from the inside out. The Frosty Assault deals 10d6 cold damage, subject to the target's Fortitude save after the effects are resolved. The target is temporarily immune for 1 day. Critical success, the target is unaffected. Success, the target takes half damage and is slowed 1 for 1 round. The spell ends. The target, on a failure, the target takes full damage, is slowed 1, and must attempt a Fortitude save at the end of each of its turns. This ongoing save has the incapacitation trait. On a fail save, the slowed condition increases by 1 or 2 on a critical failure to a maximum of slowed 4. On a success, the slow condition decreases by 1. If at any point the slow condition is reduced by 0, the spell ends. Once the creature's actions are reduced to 0 by this slow condition, the target is completely encased in ice. It continues making saving throws against Glacial Heart, possibly allowing it to reduce its slow condition enough that it can act. The ice has a hardness of 4 and 8 hit points, and its DC to force open is your spell DC. Breaking the ice frees the creature and ends the spell. If anyone other than the target breaks the ice from the outside, the target is stunned 1 and takes any damage dealt by the breaking effect of the excess ice of the ice's hit points. On a critical failure, but the target takes double damage and is essentially slow 2. And it could be heightened +1, where it increases the cold damage, which is already 10d6 by 2d6, so it becomes 12d6.
Oh my god, is that heightened per level, per 2 levels, or just like
I
it's only
believe it's heightened per
time?
level.
Oh my god. Oh, that's insane. What?
Yeah,
That's
I was like, oh, it's gonna be long. Oh my god. Oh.
so I think we found a contender for death. Sure, it doesn't straight up kill your target, but it is personal blizzard on steroids. It is massive control. I'm sorry, massive damage and massive control,
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end, provided they just can't hit that high DC.
Yeah, and honestly, it also, like I said, the fact that it essentially stops you in your tracks.
Yeah, like it does like 10 to, oh god, so this is a major hex, so it might be related to leveling up from the major hex, but even still, like 12 plus d6 of ice a level is insane. Or 12d6 or whatever higher than that too, a level is insane. Like, they're taking the damage from the ice, then they're becoming completely incapacitated, and then they're taking the bleed through damage if any overpowered schmuck who tries to save their ass.
Imagine it being heightened at level 20.
Oh my
That's
god.
essentially casting Lesson of Death. You're gonna
Oh,
die.
you're gonna get frozen to death. It's
Yeah.
insane. And even if you don't die, you're still stuck in the ice. If you're all alone, no one's saving you. You're still taking the ice damage per turn, right?
Yeah,
Set it and forget it.
Yeah, and if you're doing it like over a cliff, all the person needs to do is, okay, I'm just gonna shove this block of you over the cliff, and you're gonna die.
God, yeah, because again, the bleed through damage, it hurts them. So like,
Yeah.
if you drop them off a cliff and the ice shatters, they're probably dead at that point.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Jason X when Jason puts the girl's head into the nitroglycerin thing and then smashes it on the sink.
Yeah. I love that they did that too, because right now with the Advanced Player's Guide, so I really got to get this Legends book. It looks like it's very easy to choose Death over Renewal. Renewal is a very good healing spell. I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. A very good restoring spell, but it only works against the 2 worst conditions of the game, which are important, but you may not always get. Casting Curse of Death completely outweighs that, and now you have this Baba Yaga's middle finger hex that is so good. So now you actually have a choice here, folks. You can either choose Curse of Death or choose Baba Yaga's middle finger. That's not the name of the spell, but I'm calling it Baba Yaga's middle finger because that's what it is.
I'm thinking that the Ice Queen from Narnia.
Yes. Also the Ice Queen from Narnia. Very, very, very true. Now, let's jump to feats, because all these things, all these amazing spells and powers, that's just features. That's just stuff you get. Now let's go into builds and choices. I'm going to start off with the first one. It's a level 1 feat called Cackle.
Oh, yeah, and I got something to say about this after you read it.
So here's the thing. Cackle is a free action, and bottom line, it's a quick burst of laughter. You prolong a magical effect you created. For a free action, you get to sustain a spell. Think about that with everything else we've been already saying. This is a level 1 feat where, as a free action, granted only one time, but sometimes that's all you need, you get to sustain a spell. You still get 3 actions to do whatever the heck you want. It's a focus spell, So you can only do this so many times, but still pretty darn
Yeah.
cherry.
And also, I just want to say this: Cackle actually came built into the Witch in the playtest. I was actually a little disappointed that it wasn't built into the Witch. I would have preferred it that way. And
I think I
also,
can see why,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, and also this one also in Cackle, I believe in the playtest version, from what I was reading and from the other stuff that I was sourcing, it allowed you to basically extend concentration spells. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
that's
so which means you could. This is when you multi-class as a witch barbarian, cackle into rage.
yeah. And I was thinking about that as well. The Cackle Barbarian, good lord. The Witch Barbarian is an amazing combo. I also like the idea of a Witch Champion. Yeah,
Or even
it's so good.
witch monk.
That would be interesting, especially with like later when we cover the feats that allow you to pick a natural weapon, like your
Hmm.
hair, your claws. At least I think they
Yeah.
kept those. But let's move on to the next one. Cauldron.
All right. Let's see, cauldron. Let's see, put that up. Second.
Sure, sure.
Oh, the thing that happened before, I think is happening again. Oh, never
That's all
mind.
right.
It's
Oh,
just
awesome.
slow.
It's one
Uh,
of those days.
yeah. Anyway, cauldron. You could use the craft activity to create oils and potions. You immediately gain the formulas for 4 common first level oils or potions. At 4th level, and every 2 levels beyond that, you gain the formula for common oil or potion of that level or a lower. A 4th level potion if you're a 4th level, a 6th level potion if you're 6th level, and so forth. So if you have a familiar, you can have your familiar learn these formulas rather than storing them in a formula book. Your familiar can also learn new formulas in the same way it learns new spells, aka it can eat a page from a recipe book. And these
Nice.
formulas are transferred from a slang. What? These formulas are transferred from a slang familiar to a new familiar in the same way spells are. You can brew a great deal of magic within your cauldron. When you craft a bunch of oils or potions, you can make up to 6 in a batch instead of usual 4 per batch.
That's not bad. Level one, this now allows you to become a very superficial tertiary alchemist. You're not making
Hmm.
bombs, you're not making like spell potions like they do, but you're making healing potions, you're making burning oils, and you're making a lot for a
Yeah,
level one character. That's really good.
potion of bull strength, um, potion of night vision or whatever.
Yeah. And as you level up, it updates automatically. You don't have to
Hmm.
take a feat. There might be one, but you don't have to take a feat
Yeah.
to upgrade your cauldron. Counterspell. It's counterspell. If you know what counterspell is, basically someone goes, I cast a spell, and then you tell the GM, I hate you, and I want you to cry. Which is why I love that they've made this a feat and not just a spell. Because I played a game with a sorcerer in another tabletop game who had counterspell, and they had the ability to use their stupid amount of sorcerer points to just cast a spell again for free, and they just kept casting counterspell every fight,
Oh
and I
god,
got to do
counterspell on a
nothing.
counterspell.
Uh, so, for those of you that don't know counterspell, effectively speaking, you use your own magic to disrupt magical manifestations around you. You extend a prepared spell to counter the triggering creature's casting of the same spell. Now, that's a little different, so you can only counter the exact spell you're using. This makes it extremely difficult to actually use this ability. However, you use your spell slot, and they lose theirs. Um, this feat has a trait corresponding to the tradition of the spells you cast. So you can make it an arcane, you can make it a divine, you can make it a primal or a occult. And I like this as a GM because absolutely being shut down as a player sucks, but absolutely shutting down your GM is boring for everyone else. So this is great because they finally made counterspell harder to use because it is so, it's rough.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
um
Next up is Reach Spell. This one is basically the reach spell feat. You can extend the range of your spell if the next action you use is a cast a spell that has a range. Increase the spell's range by 30 feet as a standard for increasing the spell range. If the spell normally has a range of touch, you extend it by 30 feet. So, spell go further.
Yep.
There.
And what's great is it's meta magic, just like
Yeah.
sorcerers would get, but this is something more specific. So witches sound like they have a little bit of alchemists, a little bit of wizards, a little bit of
Hmm.
bard, a little bit of sorcerer.
Yeah.
Widen spell, exactly the same thing, but instead of longer, it's wider. Add 5 feet to a radius, um, 10 feet to a radius burst. Add 5 feet to the length of a cone or line. Sorry, my apologies. Add 5 feet to a radius 10 or more. Add 5 feet to a cone or line 15 or smaller, and add 10 feet to uh, one that's larger than 15 feet. So if your cone is a 15, let's say 20-foot cone, like Burning Hands or something, although I think Burning Hands might be 15, then you can widen it to be a 25, 30-foot cone, and that's going to cover a good chunk of the board.
Yeah. Next up is Wart Witch. You have a particular affinity for leafy plants. Your patron grants you a Lashly familiar. If you already have a familiar, this Lashly replaces your previous familiar as if your previous familiar has been slain. In addition, you gain the ability to see through vines, leaves, and other foliage. You don't take circumstance penalties to a ranged spell attacks or perception checks caused by foliage, and your targeted attacks don't require a flat check to spend against a target concealed only by such vegetation. That's
Yeah,
actually kind of
so
cool.
yeah, and leshies are really cool because leshies have a lot of bonuses against critical effects because
Hmm.
they're just plants that are smart.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, even though it says you get this thing as if your last one was slain, that doesn't have to be your story.
Hmm.
You can just be like, yo, I got a blessing from the Mushroom King. I don't know what the heck a Mushroom King is, but now I got this mushroom. Check it
Hmm.
out. It hates people and it likes the cold and the
Yeah.
dark
Yeah.
places.
Or it could be like a Pokemon. Your Pokemon has evolved or mutated. Da da
Oh, God.
da.
What was it? Parasect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, a giant mushroom starts growing out of the back of your cat.
Oh, that's cool. And Maynard makes a good point. Witches don't want to touch. Yeah, the widen spell and the reach spell.
Yeah.
Sorry, the reach spell
Honestly,
specifically
at
is
this
great for that.
right now, with the current state of the world, nobody wants to touch.
No, yeah, witches are quarantine queens. Let me say that.
Yeah.
Um, Second level feats, basic lesson. So this is what we were talking about earlier with those lessons. They are amazing benefits to your character, but you do have to feat into them. So
Hmm.
let's just say you don't like any of the dreams, elements, life protection, vengeance, which I don't know why you wouldn't want Needle of Vengeance. That's awesome. Then don't take basic lesson. Um, but it's good. Your other choice is cantrip expansion. Um, Basically, you can prepare 2 additional cantrips each day. So out of the 10, remember that you get at level 1, you can prepare 7 instead of 5 of the 10 that you know. So that's just just terrifically crazy. Um, so you choose. Do you want a crazy witch cantrip, or do you want to cast 7 cantrips a day out of 10 that you know? Michael, why don't you take conceal spell?
Conceal spell. Okay. Let's see. Conceal spell. Well, conceal spell is one of those another one of those meta magic feats. It's a level 2 feat. You hide your gestures and incantations within other speech and movement, and you attempt to conceal the fact that you are casting a spell. If your next action you use is to cast a spell, attempt a stealth check against one or more of the observer's perception DCs. If the spell has verbal components, you must also attempt a deception check against the observer's perception DC. If you succeed on your check or checks against the observer's DC, the observer doesn't notice you're casting a spell, even though material, somatic, and verbal components are usually noticeable, and spells normally have a sensory manifestation that would make spell casting obvious to those nearby. This ability only hides the spell's spellcasting actions and manifestations, not its effects, so an observer still might see a ray of light streak out from you or see you vanish from thin air.
So this is really cool. However, it doesn't specifically state hard mechanics, which gives me some trepidations. Because as a GM, I could argue, since this spell was completely unknown, there could be, like, you could catch the enemy flat-footed, or they could get, like, a whatever variety of minus to the save because they're surprised by it, which is outstanding. That level, because that's going to pay dividends in the end game. But I would like to have something more, like, solid, like, treat them as if flat-footed, treat them as if this effect, just so that as a player, I could defend my mechanics against a GM and their potential interpretation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could have a really cool GM who's like, oh yeah, -4, screw them. Or they could be like, I don't care. No penalty, who cares? And that's not good.
Yeah.
Malice says no counterspell. Yeah, also a really good potential interpretation. They cannot counterspell because they didn't see it coming. But it doesn't say that, which I would like as a player and a GM. But I still love that this could basically make you stealth cast on people and what that ramification could be.
Yeah. All right, PJ, take the next one.
Wow. Anyway, enhanced familiar. You infuse your familiar with additional magical energy. You can select 4 familiar or master abilities each day instead of 2. If you like customizing your familiar to have special powers or abilities, this is cool for familiar focus. Originally, Woodward had the Badger as a familiar and not an animal companion, so we were kind of looking into that, and then we did a bit of a rebuild, so now it's an animal companion instead of a familiar, which does have a definite mechanical difference as you level them up and give them special abilities. So this matters if you want to focus into your familiar as a magical conduit with special perks, or maybe even potentially a combatant. So especially something to look into.
Yeah. All right. Give me a second. Next one is Familiar's Language. You learn to speak with your familiar and other creatures like it. You can ask questions of and retrieve answers from, and use diplomacy skill with creatures of the same family of animals as your familiar. For example, if your familiar were a cat, you would gain the effects to speak with animals for any felines, including leopards, lions, tigers, and among others. The ability doesn't make them more friendly than normal. If your familiar ever changes to a different creature, you can't use this ability for 1 week as you absorb your new familiar's language. Special. This feat has the trait corresponding to the traditional spells that you cast: arcane, divine, occult, or primal. So essentially, you could talk to your familiar. So, like Sydney's character, she has the ability to talk to snakes, and I'm guessing would be other reptiles.
Yeah, partial tongue to a degree. We haven't really seen her get to use it so much on Nightmare of Daltonshire, simply because it is a series of one-shots where every one's a different
and
game.
I'm not sure if she does have this feat or not.
Yeah. And I think it's only good for, like, I mean, it's not only good. It's good for whatever you can come up with and whatever your GM will allow. But I think it is really cool that you can use this for reconnaissance. You can use this for role play. You can use this for whatever. Because I think we oftentimes take for granted whatever amount of mental communication we have with our familiar, but we don't have a lot of depth to it. So this adds to that. Reap Psyche loved it. Loved the snake. I'm glad you loved Henri. That was Umren's. That was Sydney's full creation. The French snake was the goddamn best. Living hair. Okay, cool. So I love this. They've changed this up a little bit. In the playtest, you basically got to choose a natural weapon. And this one, you take a feat for it. And basically, you constantly grow or shrink your hair, eyebrows, beard, or mustache by up to several feet, and manipulate your hair for use as a weapon. Though your control isn't fine enough for more dexterous tasks, so you're not going to be picking locks with your nose
Mhm.
hairs. You gain a hair unarmed attack that deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage to the brawling group and has the agile, disarm, finesse, trip, and unarmed attacks. You are Bobo, Bobo, Bobo.
Yeah. Essentially, also, the fact that it says beard, mustache. I also want to point out this: you could be a witch if you're a guy too. This class is
Yeah.
open to everybody. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, I think that is also important to state. It's very important to mention that any gender can play a witch. I know
Mm-hmm.
we always kind of see them as female presenting, and even in the book, the iconic witch is a woman, as you can see on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is important to note that, like in the real world, there are male witches. Men that practice Wicca, and there are non-binary of
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of presentations
Yeah.
that practice. So there is no limitation, and really what it comes down to is you get a free natural or unarmed attack.
Yeah.
So you get to decide how you play that out. It could be your
Yeah.
armpit hair. It could be your butt crack hair.
Yeah.
Have fun. Oh god, a butt witch.
Ugh.
Sounds like a
Anyway.
horrible food.
Yeah. Anyway, next up is Eldritch Nails. Your nails are supernaturally long and sharp. You gain a nails unarmed attack that deals 1d6 slashing damage. Your nails are in the brawling group and have the agile and unarmed traits. You can etch your nails with runes with the same costs and restrictions as etching runes onto hand wraps of mighty blows. Runes etched onto your nails apply to nails unarmed attack with both hands, but not to other unarmed attacks. You can deliver hexes through your nails. When you successfully cast a non-cantrip hex that requires 2 actions or more to cast and doesn't require a spell attack roll, if your target is within your reach as part of your spell casting activity, you can make a nail strike against the foe before applying any effects of the hex. If the strike misses, the hex has no effect. Once again, the hair and the nails, I could totally see them work with a witch monk.
Mm-hmm. I like that you can strike and cast magic. You're not limited. You can use these and cast magic as necessary. Obviously, you can get the multi-attack penalties. But I like it. It's a good natural weapon choice. It's definitely better than the hair.
Oh, Reap Psyche says, Butt Witch is my new ska witch house matchup band.
I love that too. I also love like somewhere in like San Diego, there's some group of people going like, "Hey, what's up? My name is Alistair Darktable, and we are Butt Witch. 1, 2, 3, 4." And they go.
Yeah. Oh, Maynard says, agile and unarmed, but not finesse.
Yeah, I was looking for that because I know the hair is finesse.
Mm-hmm.
The hair is agile, disarm, finesse, trip, and unarmed.
Yeah.
A
little surprised at that, but I guess it also.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the nails are not finesse.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you can also enchant it with runes and stuff. Maybe.
I think they're also going for, and don't quote me on this, but I believe they're also going for a potential strength build application. Like we've been talking about the as Maynard's been calling it, the Cacbarian.
Yeah.
Now you can multi-class into witch, and granted, I think the damage from animal style, animal instinct barbarian is better, but you can still rage and get the full benefit of rage with your claws than you would with your hair, and that's kind of a key mechanical difference there. And I also love that you get to cast strike. You get to cast hexes through your strikes.
Yeah.
That's really fun too. Improved familiar. You find it easy to attract a powerful and unusual familiar to your side. The number of abilities required to make your familiar a specific familiar is now 2 lower than normal. So again, if you really want to dig into the familiar mechanics, and really go into that build, this helps that, so you're getting more powerful and more esoteric familiars.
Yeah, just
Nice.
saying, flying monkeys.
Yeah, they're a thing. And then you get to cast Mad Monkey
Monkey spell.
Yep.
Yeah.
How about you knock out the rites of convocation?
Yep, Rites of Convocation. Your patron grants you the power to summon other creatures to aid you. Choose one summon spell, such as Summon Animal, Summon Construct, and so forth, that appears on the spell list of your spellcasting tradition. You can spend 10 minutes in communication with your familiar to replace one spell you prepared in one of your witch spell slots with the spell you choose. Heightened to the same level. The spell you replace be at the least the must be at least the summon spell's minimum spell level. Huh?
So basically, what it sounds like to me is if you take 10 minutes, you get to swap out a spell at the
Oh.
level you've prepared it with a summon blank that you've already chosen.
Ah.
So like, let's say you have the divine spell list because your patron is, I think, fervor. I think that's divine.
Yeah.
You can then switch out, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a spell that you may not care about. Let's just say sleep past level 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, although sleep may be better in Pathfinder 2 because I did not like it in Pathfinder 1. Uh, so then you can get rid of that like third or fifth level sleep spell with a third or fifth level summon celestial spell, and now you're summoning like CR crazy level angels to fight for you whenever you want to. Well,
Yeah.
that one time, but still,
Yeah.
you can do this.
And also, like I said before, more meat shields. That's better for you as a spellcaster.
Oh yeah, especially if you do that campaign and it's all witches.
Yep.
Um, so I
Each
want
witch
so
with a with each witch with multiple meat shields. So you can make a party of like 4 or 5 to a party of like 10, 20.
and it becomes like a GM's like worst dream. It's like, okay, you now have 10 collective rounds before I get to go. Ugh. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Malice made two really good points. One, the idea of a changeling witch. Yes, changelings come from hags as part of their lore. They would make amazing witches and save you some of the spell slots on disguising yourself. Um, and you also asked if dwarves in second edition, female dwarves, I should say, have beards. Not from the language that I've seen. However, comma, you can role play that however you want.
Yeah.
You can be a female dwarf with or without a beard and have all the facial hair magic you want.
Yep.
So now we're at the 6th level feats. Greater lesson. This feat gives you the greater lesson we talked about earlier. Here's the good thing though. You don't have to take beginner lesson to take greater lesson. So if you really want those greater lessons we talked about, but you're really not vibing with any of those lesser lessons, you don't have to. You can just get it at 6th level. I'm going to jump ahead to steady spellcasting because I feel like since we already covered lessons,
Sure.
it's kind of a no-brainer. Confident in your technique, you don't easily lose your concentration when you cast a spell. If another creature's reaction would disrupt your spellcasting action, attempt a DC flat 15 check. If you succeed, your action isn't disrupted. So this is great considering all of the concentration, or I should say sustaining spells we mentioned. I'm not a fan of the DC 15 flat check, but that's kind of the language that gets used a lot, so I can see why this would be the case here.
All right, next up is Witch's Charge. Is a level 6 feat. You forge a magical link with another creature, granting you awareness of that creature's condition and creating a conduit for spellcasting. During your daily preparations, you can designate one willing creature as your charge. You are always aware of your charge's direction from you, its distance from you, and any conditions affecting it. In addition, you can cast spells with a range of touch on your charge from a range of 30 feet. These effects persist until your next daily preparations. This feat has blah, blah. Yeah. So basically, you know where your buddy is at all times.
Yeah, this can be really powerful for a support witch. There's a lot of really
Yeah.
good support spells, and any touch buff or whatever, or touch heal that you might have to do,
Mm-hmm.
you no longer have to do it at touch. You can now do it at
Yeah.
30, and you can know where that stupid barbarian champion fighter tank
Mm-hmm.
or where that rogue is,
Yeah.
whatever you want at all
Yeah.
times.
And just like you're in the shadows, just like buff, buff, heal, buff, buff, heal.
I also love the idea that says their conditions. So it's like you now get to have this conversation with the GM, where the GM goes, "Why are you casting Cure Poison? You don't know he's poisoned." We all metagame a little bit because it
Hmm.
makes the game a little easier. But now you can go, "Aha! But I do know they are my charge, and I know they are poisoned with
Yep.
this one poison, and it
Oh my
sucks."
God. I just realized your charge is essentially your Robin. He's your ward. You're
Yep.
Batman, they're Robin.
And like every time he looks at his motorcycle, there's a tracker there, and he's like, "Damn it, Bruce, let me be my own man." Anyway, eighth level feats, you have Incredible Familiar. Instead of the 4 feats, you now get 6. They can either be extended towards your familiar or you as the owner of the familiar. There are special feats and abilities that familiars get that just buff the master. So if you want to have like, more bonus abilities, then that could be another build for the familiar. Just a one that supports you.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you carry on?
All right. The next one is Merc Sight. It's a level 8 feat. Your vision pierces through non-magical fog, mist, rain, and snow. You don't take circumstance penalties to range attacks or perception checks caused by non-magical perception. Uh, and your targeted attacks don't require a flat check to succeed against a target concealed only by such effects. So, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not the greatest, but it's not that bad. If you're in like a snowstorm or a fog or something, you could just easily see through it. If anything, if you're under the spell of another witch, like that personal blizzard spell that blinds you, cast this and you can just see right through it.
That not entirely. It does
Yep.
specify non-magical
Oh,
precipitation and
true,
non-magical
true,
effects.
true.
So, but that's a good point. That should be spoken because that further limits this ability, this feat.
Yeah.
Like if you're under a spell, it does nothing. If you're in a natural environment, this will be helpful. But again, ask yourself how often is that going to be a thing? If
Hmm.
your GM says, by the way, I'm going to really make you fight the elements, you're going to have to fight like snow and hail and all these great things, then hey, that's a really cool campaign. It might get a little inundated, but that can be fun sometimes. Merc's site would be good then. I don't know about
Yeah, I would
most
not
campaigns.
have put it as a level 8 feat,
Hmm.
personally.
I think they do that so they let you build a good base
Hmm.
of powerful feats, and then you can take this as like I really should because we deal
Hmm.
with a lot of this
Yeah.
crap. So, by the time you take it, this admittedly not as great reliable feat, it's kind of safe because you have this nice
Yeah,
strong
but
base.
also maybe it's a prerequisite for another feat down the line. We'll see.
Also, a good point. And speaking of prerequisite, witch's bottle. The prerequisite for this is cauldron, that
Hmm.
kind of superficial alchemist feat we talked about earlier. You spend 10 minutes and 1 focus point brewing a special potion containing the power of one of your hexes that targets a creature. Oh boy. A creature that consumes this potion is now targeted by that hex. If the hex has a sustained duration and you have cackle, you can cast cackle into the bottle just before you seal it. If you do, the hex's duration is extended as if you had cast cackle the round after the hex was cast. Typically, this extends the duration by one more round. Your cackling laugh sounds out when the potion is then unsealed. Great flavor. Any potion you create this way loses its power the next time you make your daily preparation. While the potion is in your possession, you can render it inert using a single action that has the concentration trait. You can't regain the focus point you spent to create the potion until the potion is consumed or it loses its magic. So what does this mean? This means that you can now put that amazing damage buff that we talked about into a potion and give it at least 2 rounds of effects. And that's really great because you're not concentrating.
Yeah,
They're drinking it and getting the effects if you have cackle for guaranteed 2 rounds, and then you can throw another buff on that guy.
I'm just envisioning a witch just laughing into a bottle,
Yeah, like because even Reap Psyche put just a bottle of laughs, baby, just sitting going like,
like.
okay, the power is ready.
All
Um,
right, all right. Next up is Major Lesson. Your patron grants you even greater secrets. Choose a major, greater, or basic lesson. You gain its associated hex, and your familiar learns the associated spell. Increase the number of focus points by your focus pool by 1. So yeah, you get to learn that you can learn either one of those major lessons. You get to go to high school.
Why don't you take the quicken casting feat as well, since that one's pretty much already covered.
Sure. Let's see, quicken casting. Where is it? Here it is. Well, quicken casting is one of those meta magic feats. If the next action you cast is a cantrip or a spell that's at least 2 levels lower than the highest level spell you cast, you reduce the number of actions you cast by 1. Minimum of 1 action. So, yeah, it's a free action. You could cast that spell quicker.
Yep. You can do...
Oh, yeah. You could also use... This can only be used on a cantrip or spell from the cast matching the one you gain the feat from.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It just lets you throw more spells out, which is never a bad thing. Temporary potions. You have to have Cauldron, which with the laughter in a bottle is looking like a really good option.
Yeah.
During your daily preparations, you can create a batch of 2 temporary oils or potions using a formula you know. These items follow the normal rules to craft them, except for the time they take, with some additional restrictions. Sorry, I lost my place for a minute. They must both be the same type of oil or potion, and their levels must be 6 or more levels lower than your level. Any items you create this way become inert bottles of liquid the next time you make your daily preparations, so you have a day to use them. And any remaining effects of the temporary items end. A temporary oil or potion has no value. If you have master proficiency in your traditions spell DCs, which I think you should about this level, you can create a batch of 3 temporary oils or potions during your daily preparations. And if you have legendary potions or legendary proficiency, you can create a batch of 4. So you're making your 6 a day, and then you get these like super quick, kind of under the radar oils and potions.
Yeah, you get freebies.
Yeah. It's nice. If you want to like quick build or make quick, cheap potion oils, it's not bad.
Like I said, it's actually, if anything, witch multi-class into a alchemist.
Yeah, it won't be as strong as an alchemist witch hybrid, but considering that you're still getting one of the core features of an alchemist, it's still not bad.
Yeah. All right. Next up is a level 10 feat called Witch's Communion. Witch's Communion. You can keep watch over multiple charges. So beforehand, you need Witch's Charge. Each day during your preparations, you can designate a number of charges equal to your intelligence modifier instead of just 1. So this is really great because your entire party can be your charge at this point. You have a squad of Robins.
And this is awesome because now you have every reason to fully delve into a support witch feature here. You can buff the tank. You can buff the rogue. You can buff or heal or debuff. You really wouldn't want to debuff your teammates, but you can do this with anyone in your party. The cleric, the summoner. You can really help out everyone. You kind of end up becoming this like mastermind class where you're like, yes, my minions, go.
Or Malice posted mob site.
Mob site, yeah. I wish Sydney was here because she'd be like, yes. I can't do a good Sydney impression.
Ma, can I get a juice box?
And she's like, did you drink my laughing potion? No, it was weird. I'll show you weird, you ungrateful little.
No, that could actually be the laughing potion, the potion that witches make. It's a juice box. It's handing out juice boxes.
I'm totally gonna make that a thing. Just like, did you have your Capri Sun? Like this like woman from this soccer mom from Wisconsin, like, oh yeah, no, don't you know if you do that, your face is gonna stick that way. And you put a hex on that bad guy. Oh, great. Familiar's Eyes. Level 12, you get a feat called Familiar's Eyes. Prerequisite of Familiar. Love the language. It's 1 action. You use your familiar senses as easily as your own. You project your senses into your familiar. When you do, you lose all sensory information from your own body. You can sense through your familiar's body until you dismiss the effect. While projecting your senses in this way, you can converse telepathically with your familiar if it understands a language. more remote viewing stuff. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. All right, next up for level 12 feats is Hex Focus. Your patron's teachings have allowed you to achieve a deeper focus. If you spent at least 2 focus points since the last time you refocus, you recover 2 focus points when you refocus instead of 1, which is always good. More focus points, more fun.
Yeah, I love focus points in this game. I freaking love these abilities, in which is everything we read up to this point like relies on focus points. So get that economy back.
Yeah.
Get that economy back. Fourth level, 14th level, reflect spell. Oh god, they just up counterspell basically. So now instead of saying no spell for you, uh,
No soup for you.
no spell for you. Now it's you're gonna wear that suit whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can turn that spell's effect back on its caster. When reflected, the spell affects only the original caster. So AoE spells may be a little nerfed in this sense, even if it's an area spell. The original caster can attempt to save and use their defenses against a reflected spell as normal. So you can now reflect, say, a fireball or a lightning bolt spell when you use a counter spell action. But you really have to make sure you already have that spell
Yeah.
or that spell school in your
Essentially, yeah.
repertoire.
Essentially, this is basically Yu-Gi-Oh, where you activated my trap card. Reflect.
I love that. Or if you're a fan of the Seven Deadly Sins, you're now Meliodas using your was it your full counter spell that he
Yeah.
does?
All right, next up is Rites of Transfiguration. Level 14 feat. You could adapt your patron's power to transform other creatures into forms more befitting their behavior or your whims. Your familiar learns Baleful Polymorph, even if Baleful Polymorph isn't on your tradition spell list. By spending 10 minutes in communication with your familiar, you can replace one spell of 6th level or higher you prepared in one of your witch spell slots with Baleful Polymorph spell of the same level. So essentially, this is you're the wicked witch that turns people into frogs. Or
Yeah.
in Hocus Pocus, you turn was it a Binks into a cat.
Now I don't know how this worked, but I want to say you can also cast that on your familiar.
Hmm.
Um, but Baleful Polymorph suggests it's definitely like a save or suck situation. So
Yeah.
I don't think you want to do it with your familiar. But I like the fact that that option is there for you.
Hmm.
16th level. Ooh. Effortless concentration. Free action. Your turn begins. You maintain your active spells with hardly a thought. You immediately gain the effect of sustained spell action, allowing you to extend the duration of your active witch spells. So this is like Cackle. Um,
This is Cackle on steroids.
yeah, because it's any spell. Well, that's just it, because you can only really cast one sustained spell action at a time. Well, one concentration, if you will,
Yeah.
spell at a time.
So you're essentially
So
yeah. This is more towards your Cackle Barian.
I wonder, yeah, definitely the Cackleberry. I wonder if and Malice or anyone else in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. I wonder if you actually can sustain more than one sustain a spell, but it has penalties for like Arcana checks or actions per turn, that kind of thing. Because I'm trying to figure out the difference between cackle and effortless concentration, and right now the
Hmm.
only thing that sounds that way is the language of multiplicity or
Yeah.
multiplication,
Hmm.
multiples.
Yeah.
But that's effortless concentration, because
Hmm.
if you can cast more than one concentration spell, which I know goes against 5e rules or 2e, then that would be amazing at 16 levels. Like I
Yeah.
have all these buffs active again.
Yeah. Next up is Siphon Power, level 16 feat. It's once per day requirements. You haven't acted yet on your turn. You draw upon the reservoir of your patron's magic that resides within your familiar. During your turn, you can cast one spell your familiar knows that was granted by your patron theme or lessons without spending a spell slot to do so, or even having it prepared. The spell must be at least one level lower than the highest level spell you could cast. So essentially, it's a free spell.
Yeah, it's a free spell once per day. in every sense of the word. You don't lose
Yeah.
it. You don't lose a spell slot. You don't lose an action. You don't even have to have it prepared. You don't.
Yeah.
You just go, hey, I want you to cast that thing. Oh, good boy. Like
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah, essentially, because I think what is it? Witches do have a limited amount of spell slots. This is great for them.
Yeah. Yeah. They max out at three spell slots in each level per
Hmm.
day. So they're kind of like warlocks in that they don't get a lot per day. However, they're better than warlocks in 5e because instead of having to choose from a very narrow list of spells, and that spell is automatically heightened, but you only can do so many, and you get like one freebie of like a certain spell level a day. You are actually a full caster. You are a full 1 to 10 caster.
Hmm.
So you have much more variety. You don't have
Yeah,
a lot per day comparatively, but compared to the warlock, you have a ton of
yeah.
spells.
Oh,
Uh,
in chat, Reap Psyche posted Alona site, and Maynard doubles down with juice boxes and orange slices.
I love that. I love the idea of the mom witch, and I love that Ilona is like one patron away from becoming a mom witch.
Yeah.
All right, so 18th level. We're getting close to the end here, folks.
Hmm.
The Hex Wellspring. Prerequisite, get the Hex Focus that lets you get more focus points. So, it just like Hex Focus, you get 3 points instead of one when you refocus after you've spent all of your Hex points. So this is awesome because if you're using your focus points, which you should be because they're amazing and they're free, then every time you spend all three of your Hex points or focus points, take 10 minutes of think about your life and what you did wrong and read some poetry. All three are back
There you
in
go.
that. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right, next up is level 18 feat called Split Hex. It's a one action ability. You siphon some of the power from an offensive hex you cast it directed at a second target as well. If your next action you use it, if the next action you use is to cast a spell to cast a harmful hex with a single target, reduce its level by 2, making it 2 levels lower than the maximum spell level you can cast. If you do, you can select a second target for the hex to affect. That's actually really cool. Yeah, you're taking away from the potency of the hex, but you get to spread the love. It's especially good if you're in a situation with multiple targets and you need, and one of them maybe is like near near death, but you also want to affect the other one.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Also, it stops you from having to recast hexes again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Um, sure, you have those hex points or you have those focus points, use them, but this could be a long fight. There could be lots of targets you have to neutralize.
Hmm.
You may run out of hex points.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of, uh, 20th level. We're at the 20 level now. Holy moly!
Yep.
And here's the first one. Hexmaster. The Hexmaster. You embody the link to your patron so completely that you can cast your hexes in rapid succession. You are no longer limited to casting only a single hex each turn. In addition, when you use Cackle to sustain a hex, you can gain the effects of sustain a spell for all your active hexes that have a duration of sustained. Yeah, so me and Malice have been in the chat talking about this because I've been reading so many rules, so many different editions that sometimes I forget. And I'm wondering how, like, can you sustain multiple sustain spells, and what's that cost? What's that penalty? Because with the Witch alone, we've seen two abilities that allow you to sustain hexes specifically, or at least spells and spell-like effects. So let's see. No penalty, just one action per spell you want to sustain. Oh, it's amazing.
There you
No,
go.
so you could literally have three buffs or three spells active that
Yeah.
require to be sustained each one. So Hexmaster, you put three spells out there, and uh, when you use Cackle to sustain a hex, you can then sustain all hexes for an extra duration. And Cackle's a free action.
There you go.
Huh. Well, now I'm trying to figure this out because effortless concentration allows you to do that with all of them. This is weird. Because I feel like effortless concentration is just Hexmaster without needing cackle.
Maybe this is a spell for people who didn't went down the cackle route.
Maybe. Maybe, or maybe it's at 16, instead of going with effortless concentration,
Mm-hmm.
you decided to go with siphon power instead. So Hexmaster allows you to get effortless concentration even if you missed it.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, because I feel like this is just effortless concentration, and which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, because cackle is really good at level 1. I guess this is, yeah. Effortless concentration is if you didn't get cackle at 1, and Hexmaster is if you did get cackle. So weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm having this like build epiphany. Like I'm looking, going, like, it's good.
But how
Ah,
good is it?
we need to see Patron's Truth. Well, Patron's Truth
Yeah.
gives you a second 10 level spell, so we know what that does.
Yeah.
Michael, bring it home with Witch's Hut. I think Witch's Hut is going to be the cherry on
Oh,
top.
actually, for me, it says Patron's Truth. It's the
Plus,
next
I'm
one.
saying I'm skipping that because we already know that just gives you a second 10th level spell.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Which
right.
is
So
still
which?
good.
Yeah.
But
All right. Witch's Hut. Let's see. Waiting for the load. It's one of those days, folks. One of those days.
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna laugh if this happens. What? This is what when it stops. Okay, there we go. Almost. Almost. Anyway, Witch's Hut. It's a level 20 feat. Your home is an animated structure that obeys your command. By performing a rite that takes 1 day, you create a animated object from a hut, small house, covered wagon, tent, or some similar construction up to a huge size. The hut uses your AC, saving throw modifiers, and perception modifier, and has 150 HP and a hardness of 10. It has the construct armor ability, meaning once it's reduced to less than half its hit points, or immediately upon being damaged by a critical hit, its AC is reduced by 4 until it is repaired. The hut can attack or attempt skill checks. You could give the hut a command as a single action, which has the auditory and concentrate traits. After 1 round of reconfiguring itself, the hut then follows the command until you give it a different command. The commands can be guard. The hut watches for trespassers within 120 feet using your perception modifier, and screams if it spots any. Lock. Each entrance to the hut is sealed with a lock spell. Move. The hut gains a speed of 60 feet, growing giant bird or bone legs. If necessary, follows a extremely basic movement command you give it, such as follow me or move in that direction. While perfectly suitable for overland travel, the hut's broad movements and 1 round delay on response time is too imprecise to predictably direct in a combat encounter or other situation where seconds and precise locations count. Hide. The hut appears to be a normal, mundane object of its type. This is a 10th level illusion effect. You can only have 1 hut at a time. If you animate a new hut, your previous hut immediately reverts to its original mundane form. If you die, the hut continues following the last order you give it indefinitely.
So, yeah, Witch's Hut, we've been saying in the chat, it's definitely Baba Yaga's Chicken Hut.
Yeah.
And I love that they've done that. Um, I also want to do a huge shout out to the chat, because I realize what I was not getting out of Hexmaster, what was blocking my brain on Hexmaster. I was getting hung up on the idea of sustaining and concentration. What I've missed, and thank you so much to Malice and Maynard for bringing this up. Uh, you are no longer limited to casting only a single hex each turn. You can cast 3 hexes. In addition, when you cast Cackle to sustain a hex, moving forward, you gain the effects of sustain a spell. So you're getting multiple castings of a hex around, and you're getting multiple sustainings for free. Hold on, make sure I'm getting this right. Because I'm seeing Malice was saying Hexmasters allows you to cast multiple hexes in a round. That's worth it alone. The fact that you can cast and maintain multiple hexes immediately That's gross. That is gross.
Yeah.
That is amazing gross. And then Maynard was saying effortless concentration. The other thing is automatic, not even a free action required. Which I don't know because if you look at the feat, the symbol for free action is bias. So effortless concentration would still require a free action, just like Cackle is a free action as well. However, Hexmaster makes effortless concentration kind of uh, obsolete because it allows you to cast multiple hexes. I don't see a limit, so maybe we could
Yeah.
argue one. Well, okay, I'll say this. I would argue as a GM, the limit is one hex per action, right? Because most hexes are one actions. You get 3 actions a turn, so you get to cast 3 actions a turn. Still,
Yeah.
triple better.
Well,
And
there are
then
some
those
hexes that takes multiple actions.
Some, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what's important here is that you're not limited to just one. You can do up to two minimum, 3 maximum,
Hmm.
and they automatically sustain. Like
Yeah.
that is amazing.
Yeah.
Which means you still get your turn economy
Uh-huh.
the next turn to do whatever you want without having to
Yeah.
worry about sustaining. I think that blows the lid off Witch's Hut.
Hmm.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
The only drawback I would say for that is once again to your limited spell slots of your witch. So you're casting all these spells at once.
Hmm.
You better hope that you take down whatever you're going after, because in a turn or two you're just going to be spent.
Well, it's potentially, but a lot of the hexes rely on focus points,
Hmm.
right? And some of them are cantrips, which is even better because
True.
that costs nothing.
True.
So
True.
you can throw out a cantrip, that fervor cantrip that buffs like crazy. You can throw that on the barbarian or the rogue.
Hmm.
Then you can throw out a death hex, which is actually like 1 point or 2 points, whatever it
Hmm.
is. And just assuming it's just those two, that's all you want to throw out, right? Well, that's all you
Yeah.
can. They automatically refresh every round. They continue. You don't have to waste any of your next actions. You can then start actually dipping, finally, into your spell repertoire
Oh, okay.
on the
And
next
also
rounds.
Maynard now in chat posted, Cackle consumes a focus point and effortless concentration doesn't.
Ah, there's the language. That's important to know. Okay,
Hmm.
yes, that's right. I forgot. Cackle is the first uh, focus point feat you can take.
Yeah.
Effortless concentration doesn't. So I guess now this would be my forum question. If you get Cackle and effortless concentration, which one takes precedent with Hexmaster? Because it only says Cackle, sure, but effortless concentration does the same thing AoE wise, not taking a. I guess you could fall back on it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a free action. You have multiple hexes out already. Your cackles have all run out because you run out of focus points. So now it's just effortless concentration for the rest of the fight.
It's a Hail Mary throw. It's a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
You're just like, mm, mm, mm. Once again, it's one of those really late game things that I don't think too many people are going to encounter.
Okay. I think I just realized a thing. Reading Maynard and Malice in the chat, and reading the book. The difference is that Cackle and Hexmaster works for hexes. Yeah, and Maynard just put it. Yeah, effortless concentration is for non-hexes.
Oh, okay.
It's your
Yeah.
spells, but not your hexes. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
specific. Yeah.
And also determines what's, like, if you decide to multi-class into another spellcasting class, those spells.
Yeah. So let's say you cast the buff spell and the other things. Now,
Hmm.
Cackle does take a focus point. I don't know. Hold on. Yeah, it doesn't make cackling free. It still costs a focus point. So after you put your hexes on people, um, you may still be struggling with the focus point economy. However, you can still use effortless concentration to keep any spells going and keep your hexes going
Yeah.
separately. You now have
Yeah.
these two things you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah,
That makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah. because it specifically says witching your witch spells, your active witch spells, not your hexes. So that would have to be the difference between effortless concentration and hexmaster and cackle combined. Oh,
Yeah.
Maynard says it also works in hexes. Really? No, because it only says witch spells, not hexes. Hexes, the language is in hexmaster and cackle. Well, you know what? We could debate this all day.
Yeah.
I think that, personally, looking at the language and the mechanics written, I don't believe effortless concentration applies to hexes. Would I, as a GM, love to apply to hexes? Yes, I would, because at level 20, why the hell not?
True.
I think at this point, though, that could definitely be something that you decide with your GM. So level 20. What do you think's the better feat? The 2 10th level spells a day, Hexmaster, and getting all your hexes, your buffs, and your crazy damage spells just moving on free, and freeing you up to do whatever extra spells you want to cast, or having Baba Yaga's sweet-ass chicken hut, which sounds like a restaurant, and now I'm really hungry.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, some
up to
fried
you
chicken,
guys.
man.
Like fried chicken, where it's like spicy and a little sweet, and they
And
got that
slightly
kind of
cursed.
just
Slightly
only
cursed.
just only very slightly cursed, and then you get
Yeah.
like a waffle or a pancake on the side.
Oh yeah. Personally, I would take, if the Hexmaster feat is what I think it is. So essentially, you just cast spells willy nilly, sustain spells, doesn't matter. Like, I could do it all. Hexmaster. My second choice would be Patreon's gift or something. The one you
Yeah,
get an extra level 10 spell.
I think it's
Because
Patron's Truth. I want to say
yeah,
sorry.
Patron's Truth. Extra level 10 spell. That's always good. Those are the game changing spells right there. The reality shaping spells. That's always good. And then
Yeah,
yeah, getting Baba Yaga's chicken shack. That'd be my bottom tier.
bomb ass chicken hut.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the bomb ass chicken hut is definitely bottom tier. It's not that it's a bad spell or a power. It is
Hmm.
amazing, but it really is specific to your needs.
Yeah.
And you have to now imagine the 3 different types of witch characters you're building. If you are heavy into the casting side of things, obviously having a second 10th level spell a day is huge
Hmm.
when you only are supposed to get one, and one could completely change the narrative entirely. Um, Things like Wish or Wish on steroids.
Yeah.
Getting 2 of those is awesome, but it's also not very, I guess you could say,
Economical.
exciting. No, I don't know about economical. It's not very exciting.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing and it's plain. It's like the best vanilla ice cream, handcrafted artisanal vanilla ice cream.
Hmm.
Yes, it is the most flawless creation, but it's vanilla.
Yeah.
Um, the chicken hut, I'm on the fence of, because I feel like at that point I'm just using this chicken hut to give my other players a constant headquarters and kind of
Yeah,
home.
it's very, very situational. I would only maybe take that spell if I was playing, like, honestly, a meme character. I'll just use the house to punk other people.
I also feel like this is a great way, before Legend came out, the Lost Omens Legends came out. This is a great way to stat out what Baba Yaga's chicken hut would look like statistically wise. Like
Yeah.
if you're a GM and you run to a level 20 witch who's Baba Yaga, you know the stats for her house. Um, I'm still leaning heavily into witch or hexmaster,
Hmm.
only because some of these hexes, the curse of death, the stoked hearts, the ice, the personal blizzard and the personal blizzard on steroids.
Yeah.
Having even the shadow hex that like beats them to death
Yeah.
over the head. Those
Exactly.
are
Like,
insane.
being able, and then thinking about being able to cast and sustain multiple of them at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I mean it's amazing. I'm a little worried about the focus points though for that one. The focus points economy doesn't add up in my head. Like
Hmm.
doing any doing any of them is 1 to 2 focus points. Cackling is 1 focus point. You
Yeah.
only get a maximum of 3 ever. So I think yeah, Yeah, you can't get more than 3 according to the rules. So the problem is you're going to easily run out of points on the first turn. So I feel like for this to really hold true, it would either be like, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It kind
I
of
hear you.
it worries me a bit, but it's still really good. Still really good
Yeah,
mechanically speaking.
yeah. It's one of those things where, you know what? I'm just gonna. I'm at full power, and I'm just gonna try to end this fight as soon as possible. I'm just gonna unload everything in turn one.
Yep, I'm gonna buff the barbarian. I'm gonna give you the curse of death. I'm gonna put your shadow on you, beating you up.
Oh, I just realized something. Maybe you just use that spell, use that ability to just sustain the buff as long as possible. That's your entire multiple stuff. So you don't have to keep casting. You're just sustaining all those buffs at once. You're like you said.
Yeah.
You're a buff lamp.
Yeah, you just turn the witch on, and she's like, buffs for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can give someone a buff potion with the cackle
Yeah,
already in it,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
one of your hexes out there.
yeah. Combine that with the witch's charge upgraded ability.
That's not. Yeah, that's true. You could now. I think it's still. Oh God, no! It's definitely
Or I just
still one
thought of
over,
something.
but
You have that witch's charge buffed up ability, and instead of just being able to heal one person at once, you're able to just heal up everybody for maybe a
true.
turn or two.
I think though for the witch's charge, where you get to like have everyone be your charge, you still have to cast the spell multiple times for each person. I would love it if one cast hit the whole party. Could you imagine the whole party getting that damage buff?
Yeah,
That's a massive game changer. The rogue sneak attacking with plus 12 damage. The barbarian raging with another plus 12 damage. The sorcerer blasting away with plus 12 damage. Like that's stupidly good. Oh
okay.
god, the champion
Oh,
smiting.
okay. No, it's not a spell. You just decide during your daily preparations.
What?
Witch's charge.
Oh yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying it's you have to cast each time to other people in your charge.
Oh yeah.
So like if you have 5 people as your charge, because 20 intelligence, then you don't get to do the fervor buff once for all 5. You have to cast it until you run out of focus points.
Mm.
But still, not bad. If you, oh god, if you could, that'd be insane. Um, yeah, Reap Psyche, I feel you. I had 4 eggs and 4 strips of bacon and an apple, and I'm still starving. And we've been talking about chicken for two and a
Yeah.
half hours.
No, I've decided I'm making chicken for dinner tonight. I'm
Uh,
grilling up some chicken.
I'm gonna have to do that too. I'm gonna eat some food. I'm gonna go to the gym, work out, eat some more food, and then I'll be good.
Mhm. Oh, Reap Psyche says, thing is, you can have buffs up while shadow beating people at the same time.
True, absolutely. I think, and this is where my conflict comes in here, Reap Psyche, is that to cast the hex, that's 1 focus point, right? To cast the other hex, that is at least 1 focus point. Oh no, wait. I think the buff hex is a cantrip, it does not cost a focus point. So that's something. However, to cast the other hexes that aren't cantrips, that are spells, those cost a focus point. To cackle, to extend that hex, that also costs a focus point. So assuming, let's just be generous and say 1 cackle will affect all 3 hexes, right? That means you may get 1 to 2 rounds before your maximum potential 3 focus points are expended.
Yeah.
But still, that's 3 rounds of automatically sustaining 3 hexes, 2 to 3 hexes. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Like I said, it's one of those. I'm fully charged up. I'm Herbie fully loaded, and I'm just gonna unload on you.
Yeah, it's my Overwatch ultimate. It's not gonna last very long, but it's gonna turn the tide of the
Yeah.
fight
And
tremendously.
honestly, I don't know about you, but if you're fully kitted up and everything, if you have a good game plan, a fight shouldn't last longer than maybe 6 turns, unless you go
Yeah,
into like if you somehow some trouble happens,
I
everybody
think
fails on their rolls.
especially at that level,
Yeah,
where you are so strong.
yeah. This
Um,
is your ace in the hole.
it definitely is an ace in the hole. Oh my God, especially with all the things that you can give other people. So even
Hmm.
when your turn is not happening, you are directly responsible for the flow of combat,
Yeah,
giving damage buffs, giving defensive buffs, giving resistances, or I should say, increasing vulnerabilities. All those really pay dividends. Um, so yeah, honestly, Witch, great class. At first, I was going to be a little worried because I remember Witch in
hmm,
Pathfinder 1, the debuffs weren't very powerful. There was like a few here and there, but this is really rewarding.
it's not too bad. It's not too shabby.
I'll say
Um,
this. I
yeah,
would pick the Witch over the Oracle every day. Every day.
true. Like if I was play, I feel Oracle. It's a good archetype to go into, but not a good class to main. With which, oh man. Also, speaking of multi-classing, which barbarian, which monk, or
Yeah.
which investigator.
Ooh, interesting Witch Investigator. The intelligence is high for both,
Yeah,
so yeah, that could really pay
yeah.
off.
Or even honestly, if you want to have more of those spell slots, maybe witch sorcerer.
That could be really cool. Having a lot of very interesting, flexible magic like
Hmm.
that. I love
What?
this just
Yeah.
because I love playing tanky or fighty boys like
Uh-huh.
monks and rogues. I'm a martial class person. If it wasn't obvious from
Hmm.
my failure to remember magic rules,
Hmm.
um, so I love the idea of a witch baron, a witch champion, a witch fighter. I think those can make, ooh, even a witch ranger. They can make some
Yeah,
really
witch
fun
ranger.
combinations.
Yeah, like for me, I'm more of I guess I'm not even really sure what to talk. I guess I'm more of a okay. I see this. I'm a strategy guy. I'm a strategy guy. If you can't tell already, so I'm more of the bards, the investigator, rogue, even ranger. And honestly, witch is also one of those classes that rely heavily on strategy. This is one of those ones where you every situation you go into, you want to kind of come up with a plan, a strategy, kind of a what to do. You can't just react. You have to have a game plan going into it, a
Yeah.
playbook.
Maynard's saying which ranger would have so many friendos? Yeah, or
Hmm.
oh, you make a witch druid combination, then you have
Oh,
so
which
many
druid would
summons.
would do very well as well. I think which, yeah, honestly, which actually benefits a lot from multi-classing.
You know what I'd like to see, and maybe if we get a chance in
Which
November to look into
cleric?
the bard, which cleric could be fun, especially if you go down the divine
Yeah,
witch paths and
healing.
really is druid spellcasting no druid spellcasting is wisdom, unfortunately. However, since you're probably not going to have a very strong very a high strength stat, you can probably get away with having a high con intelligence and
Hmm.
wisdom, forego some charisma, forego
Hmm.
some dex. um,
I think the only bad one so far that I could think of is which magus.
yeah, that wouldn't work very well.
Yeah.
It would be very counterintuitive, especially because the magus is something that is so isolated and specific. I think the only
Hmm.
thing that would help it is,
Martial classes.
oh, yeah, yeah, that's really the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I'd love to do a deep dive into the Bard on the
Hmm.
show and then compare the Bard in better detail to the Witch because they both have such a potential for buffing, and then maybe even see what happens if we create a
Yeah.
Witch
I
Bard
mean, honestly, we could
multiclass.
always create a series of videos where we just call it versus, and we just have two classes versus each other, or even do the whole tournament thing. Which class comes out on top?
I do kind of like that. I would love to see that in the chat. If you want to have this conversation of which class would win against which one in the fight, let us know.
Hmm.
Understanding that there is no bad or wrong
Yeah.
class. There is just the game that you want to play. But since
For
as nerds,
entertainment purposes.
exactly we love Death Battle. We love Actually all these amazing shows on YouTube. We love these just to kind of see for the
Yeah,
giggles.
yeah.
So if you're interested in seeing, once we're done with the core rulebook and the advanced player's guide, kind of a competing tournament of classes, not so much builds, just raw class, let us know. Maybe we'll have like witch versus bard, barbarian versus champion,
Hmm.
monk versus rogue, or monk versus
Yeah. Maynard
swashbuckler.
posted which Magus might just be a bard at the end of the day.
Could be, very well could be. But
Which
yeah, we
bard? Which bard?
well, that's what I'm saying. I think witch bard would be an awesome combo, just all the buff potential. But I want to save that for after we're done doing a deep dive on the bard, so we can really compare and contrast, make a multi-class, and then make them fight it out in the arena of pedantic
Yeah.
debate.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I think we're getting to that time.
Oh, it's absolutely that time.
Yeah. I'm running low on fluids, and I
Yep.
want to eat some chicken.
Yeah, me too. I think I have some chicken waiting for me. Now, normally we would spend some time building a character. However, we have officially hit our five NPCs to be voted on to become a member of the Edge of Legend
Hmm.
universe. We are still doing the Nightmare of Daltonshire Halloween story, so tune in tomorrow for
Yeah.
episode 3, The Labyrinth of Doors. But when we start back again in November, we'll have the official voting to see who will be the NPC that joins the world. So for right
Yeah.
now, we're going to put a hold on making more
Mhm.
characters, but we might be able to pick that back
Yeah.
up again down the road.
And like I said, with Witch, it makes sense for Witch to take a while because not only does it have its lessons, but also has its patrons, and yeah, Witch is one of those classes with a lot of customization that we have to go
A
through.
lot of it. And different focus on builds. You want to focus on hexes,
Yeah, yeah.
spells, familiars,
Hmm.
a house that walks.
Yeah,
Um,
and also, this is one of the things I want to bring up to you, PJ, is we did PC builds. Maybe next time we could do a magical item build, or maybe we could build a feat or some sort of or background or something in your
yeah,
world. What do you think?
I love that. You know what? Let's do this focused. Let's start with magical items because
Hmm.
we will put the magical items into the show. We've already
Yeah.
made the first one, the hand wraps of heavenly peace, so that those pacifists can still fight in a fight. There's a magical item we have yet to actually show. It's called the patch of grass.
Hmm.
Basically, it is a 5 by 5 foot or a 10 by 10 foot, depending on the size that you buy, and it lets you roll down a
Yeah.
green carpet, and that carpet turns into natural grass. Great for druids on the go. Great for people who need to sleep in some outdoorsy stuff, barbarians and such.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about magical items. Maybe we'll do that in November as well,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there with what we can
Sounds
create
good.
together.
Sounds good. All right. So I'm guessing we're. Oh, let's do our outros.
Absolutely, I was just about to do that. I didn't want to interrupt you though.
Yeah.
So that being said, thank you so much for joining us today here at the table as we discussed the spooky class of the witch. Next week, we hope to have World of Wittivere on the show as we build and discuss their guest character in Edge of Legends. I'm sorry, Edge of Legend, Nightmare of Daltonshire, episode 4. Um, if life continues to throw a curveball, don't worry, we'll still be here with
We'll
our
figure
books.
something out. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, and we'll join you here at the
Yeah.
table. As always, my man, Mr. Michael Powell, tell them who you are and where they can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Hey everybody, I am Michael Powell. You can find me on most social media such as Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, blah blah blah. They're all at Mr. Kapow. That's MrKapao. Or you can follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, which is kind of my central hub where I put all the stuff that I work on. It's called facebook.com/ Michael Powell Does Stuff because I do a lot of stuff, such as my new YouTube channel called Fantastic Tales of Adventure, where oh man, I think we just hit over 20 videos now. I post up pretty much every other weekday and bonus Sundays sometimes, and also on was it Thursdays at Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Toyzilla Network. I co-host a show called Toyzilla Live, where I talk about new toy news and nostalgia stuff. So yeah.
Very, very cool. Definitely check it out. It's always great contact with Mr. It's always great content with Mr. Michael Powell. You guys know me as PJ.McGaw. I'm everywhere on the internet as PJ.McGaw. And when I'm not here at the table with Mr. Michael Powell on Tuesdays, you can see us here Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Edge of Legend. We are still currently in our month-wide Halloween event. We are in episode 3 starting tomorrow, The Labyrinth of Doors. What horrors await from beyond the unknown? And then we'll see who survives. Who knows? Laszlo has 2 HP. Maybe he'll die immediately. Maybe Laszlo will live. Right now,
I
he's got
have
the
no
crown.
idea. I will do something unexpected if I somehow survive.
Oh man, we will
I'm
see.
not betting on myself. No, I wouldn't take that bet.
I don't want to kill you right out, but it's gonna be nasty.
Yeah.
And then episode 4 will be the end of the month, and hopefully you guys will have a good dose of spoopiness. If you can't watch our episodes Wednesday at 8 p.m. on this Nat channel, at that Nat time, go ahead and YouTube us. Look up Edge of Legend. Click on Nat20 Productions. You'll see all the videos you'll see at the table. Edge of Legend, recaps, everything is all there. And last but not least, earlier today I did an awesome spit it out, BJ. I did a stream with Indiecade at 6 in the morning today. I had to get up at 4 in the morning for it. It will be put on repeat. I'll try to get a hold of that and put it somewhere on our channel so you can see me at 6 in the morning. And the final bit. Normally on Fridays, I'm with a good friend of ours, Ryan Omega, doing C-Crit, CCRIT. However, we are dark this week as the continuation of Indiecade goes on. Even though CCRIT will not be showing on Friday, this Friday the 23rd, I will be working with Make Believe Productions, or MB Stages, doing their D&D fundraiser. If you want to come join, if you want to be in my game, I am doing a Jumanji D&D one-shot with the amnesia rules. You wake up, you don't know who you are, you don't know what you can do, but you got to find out because Jumanji is a game that waits for no one. So have fun, come join us, drink a few beers, have a great laugh, and help the local LA theater scene and D&D scene. Without further ado, I think...
Also,
yes.
Also,
yes.
Don't forget to join our Discord.
Yes, absolutely. Don't forget to join our Discord. The link's in the chat a few times there. I think most of you are in the Discord already, but if not, we look forward to talking with you in the Discord. We have players and producers in the Discord all the time. So everyone, thank you for joining us for The Witch. And we look forward to seeing you same Nat time, same Nat channel at the table. You guys have a great Halloween. Bye! Stay safe!
Oh, and go vote if you haven't yet.
You gotta go vote now. It's a rule.